Good morning, everybody. I am Dan Garodnick, Chair of the City Planning Commission and Director of the Department of City Planning. Welcome to today's review session and public meeting of the City Planning Commission. We are joined today by Vice Chair Knuckles, Commissioners Benjamin, Cerullo, Gold, Kermani, Marin, Osorio, and Rampersad. Thank you all. Before getting to today's agenda, I'd like to share some recent DCP-related news. Last week, Governor Kathy Hochul held her State of the State address, where she touched on the importance of removing barriers that slow down the creation of new housing. Specifically, she committed to pursuing a more streamlined environmental review process that will save both time and money for new proposals, including residential developments and important infrastructure projects. As New York City continues to grapple with a historic housing crisis, this announcement from Governor Hochul will make it easier to create the new homes and affordable homes that New Yorkers need. We're working on environmental reform at the local level, too, as seen by our updated rules for SEQR, the city's environmental quality review. The changes made to the SEQR technical manual last month permit certain small and moderate housing developments to complete a shorter environmental assessment statement, or EAS. This will help us get developments through environmental review and shovels in the ground at a faster pace. We also recently published the latest citywide statement of needs for fiscal year 2027 and 2028. This document highlights how local needs are identified by communities and addressed through capital planning. Covering affordable housing, schools, parks, and more, this annual release is accompanied by an interactive online map showing where capital projects are proposed. You can dive into the data yourself on our website, nyc.gov/planning. Let's get to the meeting. Since we did not hold a review session yesterday, those items are going to be covered today. We'll start with a special review session to discuss upcoming votes and pre-hearings, then move to our public meeting. And then we're going to return to the special review session for new projects and post-hearing discussions. So a little bit of this, a little bit of that today. Our first vote for today is going to be on two proposed historic district designations by the Landmarks Preservation Commission in Ditmas Park, Brooklyn. The Beverly Square West Historic District would cover an area between Argyle Road and Marlborough Road and between Beverly Road and Cortelyou Road. The Ditmas Park West Historic District covers an area located between Ditmas Avenue and Beverly Road, bounded by Westminster and Marlborough Roads. We're then going to move on to Astoria, Queens for a vote on a proposed demapping of an unbuilt portion of 32nd Street between 21st Avenue and Ditmars Boulevard. This would help facilitate the continued operation of an outdoor play area for the students at Astoria Lutheran School. Today's final two votes regard authorizations on Staten Island. The first is in the Special Hillsides Preservation District that would enable the development of 4 single-family detached homes with ground floor accessory dwelling units on Henderson Avenue in New Brighton. We've seen ADU applications filed across the boroughs since the passage of City of Yes, and this offers another example of them in action. The second authorization is for a proposed enlargement to a single-family home at 45 Charter Oak Road in the Special Natural Area District in Toad Hill. Turning to our public hearings today, we're going to start with testimony on a proposed demapping by the New York City Department of Parks and Recreation on the Lower East Side. The agency is asking to eliminate a portion of Allen Street between Delancey and Rivington Streets to transform the Allen Street Mall median into a public park and to repurpose the closed restroom as a concession stand to serve this community. The public is also welcome to testify on 3759 Hamilton Avenue in St. George, Staten Island. This mixed-use building would include nearly 370 homes, of which over 110 would be income-restricted affordable, as well as community facility space, ground floor retail, and publicly accessible open space. The site is near the North Shore Waterfront Esplanade Park, the Staten Island University Hospital Community Park Baseball Stadium, the Empire Outlets, and the St. George Transit Hub. For new projects entering public review, we'll first look at 2950 West 24th Street in Coney Island, Brooklyn. This project would create over 400 income-restricted apartments through the Department of Housing Preservation and Development's ELA program, and would include ground floor retail and community facility space. The building would be located around the corner from the B36 and B74 bus stops, and less than 2 blocks from Riegelman Boardwalk and Coney Island Beach. I'm happy to report that 3 of the 4 next projects certifying today use our Green Fast Track, which provides a more streamlined environmental review process for small and medium-sized, climate-friendly housing projects, helping them get built faster. In this case, that means around 300 new homes are entering public review months earlier than usual. That's enough homes to make a difference in the lives of more than 1,000 New Yorkers. The first of these Green Fast Track projects is a mixed-use building at 1166 Bedford Avenue in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. That would create more than 140 income-restricted homes, as well as ground floor retail and a new mosque and school to replace the facilities that exist on the site today. The proposed building would be located near the A and C train Franklin Avenue station and the Franklin Avenue shuttle, and offer easy access to John Hancock Playground and Madison Hill Community Garden. Heading to Queens, we're going to hear details about 2 new mixed-use buildings at 5020 108th Street in South Corona. Together, they would generate around 200 new homes, of which nearly 50 would be income-restricted, affordable, and commercial and community facility space. Tenants would live across the street from William F. Moore Park, which is undergoing a full reconstruction and scheduled to reopen later this year. The building would also be near the Q23 and Q58 bus stops and a short walk to Flushing Meadows, Corona Park. We'll also review a Green Fast Track proposal for new homes with ground floor retail in Ridgewood. Located at 6302 Fresh Pond Road, this project would create more than 50 new homes, of which around 15 would be permanently income-restricted affordable. The site is steps away from several bus lines, including the Q38, Q54, Q58, Q98, QM24, and QM25, and within walking distance of the M train at Fresh Pond Road Station. Finally, we'll head to 1160 Pugsley Avenue in Unionport in the Bronx to look at a Green Fast Track proposal for 100% affordable mixed-use building with over 100 new homes above a fresh food store. The building would be a few blocks from the 6 train at Parkchester and Chief Dennis L. Devlin Park. Finally, I do want to note, that several of the projects that are certifying today are potentially eligible for the Affordable Housing Appeals Board, pursuant to recent amendments to the city charter, as confirmed by counsel to the Department of City Planning. These projects are the 2950 West 24th Street rezoning, the 1166 Bedford Avenue rezoning, the 5020 108th Street rezoning, the 6302 Fresh Pond Road rezoning, and the 1160 Pugsley Avenue rezoning. In further review sessions, I don't expect to make a special note of what may be eligible for the review, for the appeals board here, but in light of the recent changes to the charter and how they have changed the procedure for public review of certain housing actions, I wanted to make that note for the record, at least today. So with that, Madam Secretary, let's get right to it. Thank you all for listening.
Good morning and welcome to the City Planning Commission's special review session for Wednesday, January 21st, 2026. The time is 10:10 and a quorum is present. First, we have future votes for consideration today. Staff have prepared reports for 32nd Street demapping, Ditmas Park West Historic District, and Beverly Square West Historic District. Also for consideration are Henderson Avenue development and 45 Charter Oak Road in Staten Island. Briefing materials were included in your weekend package. The second item on our agenda is a pre-hearing review of a city map amendment and a zoning text amendment in Manhattan Community District 3, and our presenter is Abraham Abreu.
Hello, Abraham.
One day I will learn to press the button. Good morning. All right, so good morning. This is the pre-hearing for Allen Street Mall demapping on the Lower East Side of Manhattan Community District 3. This application was submitted by the New York City Department of Parks and Recreation. We're seeking two actions, a city map amendment and a zoning text amendment to facilitate a parks concession at the Allen Street Mall on Allen Street between Delancey Street and Rivington Street on the Lower East Side. A key focus of this application is repurposing the existing shuttered restroom facility to better serve the community and create a more functional and more welcoming public space. This application was certified by the Department of City Planning on December 1st, 2025. Just to get our bearings, take a look at our land use map of the surrounding area. The Allen Street malls extend between East Houston Street and East Broadway, passing through the Lower East Side, Bowery, and Chinatown neighborhoods. The area falls primarily within C62A and C44A zoning districts, and it is characterized by mixed-use, medium to high rise residential buildings with ground floor commercial uses. Here's our satellite aerial with the area proposed to be demapped highlighted. Today, the total map width of the street is currently 138 feet, making it a wide street for zoning regulation purposes. However, if the demapping is approved, the map width would be 56 feet on each side of the mall, making it two parallel narrow streets. Each direction includes a parking lane, a dedicated bus lane, a vehicular travel lane, and a bicycle lane. The proposed text amendment would allow Allen Street to be continue to be considered a wide street for zoning purposes, rather than two parallel narrow streets separated by parking. So, in summary, the Department of Parks and Recreation is seeking a city map amendment to eliminate, discontinue, and close a portion of Allen Street between Delancey and Rivington Streets and Maples Park, and also a zoning text amendment to preserve the current zoning regulations regarding lots fronting a wide street for properties fronting Allen Street between Delancey and Rivington Street. And this is in service of designating the project area as a public park to give parks full site control, including to repurpose the closed restroom as a concession to meet community needs. Moving into public review, on December 11, 2025, Manhattan Community Board 3 held a public hearing on this project. And then on December 18th, the board issued a favorable recommendation for both actions with 34 in favor, 0 against, and 0 abstaining. Then on January 16th, 2026, the Manhattan Board President also issued a favorable recommendation for both actions. So I would like to just quickly take a moment to follow up on some of the discussions that happened back at certification. First, there were some questions about bulk regulations. So absent the proposed text amendment, the required minimum setback from the street would increase from the current 10-foot requirement for wide streets to 15 streets for narrow street, or 15 feet for narrow streets, excuse me. This would make one lot non-compliant, which is the one that's highlighted in red. Most of the lots along this corridor appear to be fully built out, but there are 3 lots on the west side of Allen Street that have relatively low FARs built out now, which are the ones highlighted in blue. Also a note about operational jurisdiction. So Parks maintains the malls pursuant to interagency agreement with DOT for all the blocks within the Allen Street Mall. And the reason why it is demapping for this particular block is being sought is so that they can Park can clarify their authority to administer a concession within that building. It's the one block that has a building on it. So that's the presentation. Happy to take any questions.
Great. I'll remind everybody that we're going to have a actual hearing on this within a few minutes. So, but if you have questions for the staff, now we can do it. Questions for the staff? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Abraham. The third Item on our agenda is a pre-hearing review of zoning map and zoning text amendments in Staten Island Community District 1. Our presenter is Amy Obenaga.
Hello, Amy.
Good morning. Good morning, Chair Gradnick and Commissioners. This application was certified on November 3rd, 2025, and returns for pre-hearing, and today I'm presenting 3759 Hamilton Avenue rezoning project. This private application submitted by Hamilton Property Holdings, LLC, was for a zoning map amendment from an existing R6 to an R7-3 with a C2-4, and a related zoning text amendment to Appendix F to establish a mandatory inclusionary housing area with Option 2 in the Special Hillsides Preservation District to an R7-3 in the Special St. George District. These actions are proposed to facilitate the development of an approximately 324,000 square foot, 18-story mixed-use building containing 369 dwelling units, 111 of which would be income restricted, 1,250 square feet of commercial, 7,700 square feet of commercial use, 3,880 square feet of open space, and 146 parking spaces at 3759 Hamilton Avenue in the St. George neighborhood, Staten Island Community District 1. This applicant is seeking a zoning map amendment. The project area consists of contiguous lots 1, 6, partial lot 119, 121, 123, 124, and 127 on Staten Island Block 13, which are all under the applicant's ownership and will be demolished for the construction of this project. In 2021, portions of tax lots 116 and 119 within the development site were removed from the Special Hillsides Preservation District and remapped as part of the Special St. George District and upzoned from an R6 district with a partial C22 overlay to an R73 with a C24 overlay. Again, this application was certified by the Commission on November 3rd, 2025, and on December 9th, 2025, the community voted and issued an unfavorable recommendation. And on the Staten Island Borough President on January 8th issued an unfavorable recommendation citing a concern that the development would not provide adequate parking and that the scale would further tax an already burdened infrastructure. That concludes my presentation, and I'd be very happy to take any questions the Commission may have.
Great, thank you. Another example of a public hearing that is pending, but let's see if there are questions for you, Commissioner Osorio.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks so much for the presentation. I really just, in preparation for the hearing, wanted to ask you, can you help us a little bit understand what's been sort of like, what else has the department knows in terms of the community concerns? I mean, with the information that we got is pretty kind of like concrete and specific, but also a little limited. And so since there was, since both the community board and the borough president have a strong position in this, I'm wondering if you can help us understand what are the other concerns that perhaps have been discussed and to what extent there's been a discussion about them.
Certainly. So my colleague and I attended the community board meeting in December, and from the community board, we were hearing overwhelmingly a concern about parking. To Staten Island's division, our understanding is that this area of Staten Island is the most transit accessible. It is the most pedestrian-friendly area of the borough. It also has the lowest level of car ownership in the borough. So the concern about 146 parking spots are being provided. So our concern, we don't share with the community board in terms of the availability of infrastructure. Overwhelmingly, their concern was parking, roads, traffic.
Okay, thank you. That's very useful.
Commissioner. Okay, other questions? Okay, thanks, Amy. We will pick this one up for our public hearing in a little bit. Thank you. Next.
Chair Garodnick will pivot to the public meeting now.
Okay.
Good morning. This is the City Planning Commission public meeting held remotely and in person in the CPC hearing room at 120 Broadway, Lower Concourse. Today is Wednesday, January 21st, 2026, and I will now call the roll. Chair Garodnick.
Here.
Vice Chair Knuckles.
Here.
Commissioner Benjamin.
Present.
Commissioner Cerullo.
Here.
Commissioner Crowell. Commissioner Dweck is absent. Commissioner Gold.
Here.
Commissioner Goodrich. Commissioner Kamani.
Here.
Commissioner Mann.
Here.
Commissioner Marin.
Here.
Commissioner Osorio.
Here.
Commissioner Rampershad.
Here.
A quorum is present. The first item is the approval of the minutes of the public meeting of Wednesday, January 7th, 2026.
Thank you. I make a motion to approve the minutes of January 7th. Commissioner Cerullo, thank you for the second. All those in favor, please say aye.
The
Any
next,
opposed? Okay, thank you. Minutes are approved.
the next part of the calendar is the report section on page 4. In the Borough of Brooklyn, calendar number 1, Community District 14, N 260209 HKK, in the matter of a communication from the Landmarks Preservation Commission for a historic district designation concerning Beverly Square West Historic District. For the adoption of calendar number 1 for referral to the City Council, Chair Garodnick.
Aye.
Vice Chair Knuckles. Commissioner Benjamin.
Aye.
Commissioner Cerullo.
Yes.
Commissioner Crowell.
Yes.
Commissioner Gold.
Yes.
Commissioner Goodrich. Commissioner Kermani.
Yes.
Commissioner Mann.
Yes.
Commissioner Marin.
Yes.
Commissioner Osorio.
Yes.
Commissioner Rampershad.
Yes.
A report has been adopted to forward to the City Council on calendar number 1. Calendar number 2, Community District 14, N 260210 HKK. In the matter of a communication from the Landmarks Preservation Commission for a historic district designation concerning Ditmas Park West Historic District. For the adoption of calendar number 2 for referral to the City Council, Chair Garodnick.
Aye.
Vice Chair Knuckles.
Yes.
Commissioner Benjamin.
Aye.
Commissioner Cerullo.
Yes.
Commissioner Crowell.
Yes.
Commissioner Gold.
Yes.
Commissioner Goodrich. Commissioner Kamani.
Yes.
Commissioner Mann.
Yes.
Commissioner Marin.
Yes.
Commissioner Osorio.
Yes.
Commissioner Rampershad.
Yes.
A report has been adopted to forward to the City Council on calendar number 2. Borough of Queens, calendar number 3, 32nd Street, demapping, Community District 1. C 250068 MMQ, in the matter of an application for a city map amendment concerning 32nd Street demapping. For a favorable report on calendar number 3, Chair Garodnick.
Aye.
Vice Chair Knuckles.
Yes.
Commissioner Benjamin.
Aye.
Commissioner Cerullo.
Yes.
Commissioner Crowell.
Yes.
Commissioner Gold.
Yes.
Commissioner Goodrich. Commissioner Kamani.
Yes.
Commissioner Mann.
Yes.
Commissioner Marin.
Yes.
Commissioner Osorio.
Yes.
Commissioner Rampershad.
Yes.
A favorable report has been adopted on calendar number 3. Borough of Staten Island, calendar numbers 4 and 5, Henderson Avenue Development, Community District 1, calendar number 4, N 260046 ZAR, calendar number 5, N 260047 ZCR, in the matter of applications for the grant of an authorization and a certification concerning Henderson Avenue Development. For the adoption of calendar numbers 4 and 5, Chair Garodnick.
Aye.
Vice Chair Knuckles.
Yes.
Commissioner Benjamin.
Aye.
Commissioner Cerullo.
Yes.
Commissioner Crowell.
Yes.
Commissioner Gold.
Yes.
Commissioner Goodrich. Commissioner Kamani.
Yes.
Commissioner Mann.
Yes.
Commissioner Marin.
Yes.
Commissioner Osorio.
Yes.
Commissioner Rampershad.
Yes.
Calendar numbers 4 and 5 have been adopted. Calendar number 6, 45 Charter Oak Road, Community District 2, N 260001 ZAR, in the matter of an application for the grant of an authorization concerning 45 Charter Oak Road for the adoption of calendar number 6. Chair Garodnick.
Aye.
Vice Chair Knuckles.
Yes.
Commissioner Benjamin.
Aye.
Commissioner Cerullo.
Yes.
Commissioner Crowell.
Yes.
Commissioner Gold.
Yes.
Commissioner Goodrich. Commissioner Kamani.
Yes.
Commissioner Mann.
Yes.
Commissioner Marin.
Yes.
Commissioner Osorio.
Yes.
Commissioner Rampershad.
Yes.
Calendar number 6 has been adopted. The next part of the calendar is the public hearing section on page 6. Borough of Manhattan, calendar number 7 and 8, Community District 3, calendar number 7, C, 250306, MMM, calendar number 8, N, 250307, ZRM, public hearing in the matter of applications for a city map amendment and a zoning text amendment concerning Allen Street demapping.
Great, thank you very much, and I just remind anybody wishing to be heard on any of the matters today to keep their comments to 3 minutes. And for the purpose of Allen Street Mall demapping, we have Lindsay Schott, Anthony Macari, and Antonios Mikalakis from NYC Parks. Welcome. Glad you're here.
Hi, good morning. My name is Antonios Mikalakis. I'm the Director of Parklands of the New York City Parks Department, and I'm presenting these two actions for you. So Allen Street Mall between Rivington and Delancey is about 9,300 square feet. It is mapped within the city right-of-way, and we are seeking to demap it and map it as parkland. We're only specifically targeting this mall compared to the other ones because this one has a restroom facility on it that has been shuttered since the early 1950s, and we are looking to activate it once again for the community as a restroom and some other sort of public amenity for them. The 1,000 square foot, just over 1,000 square foot restroom facility was built in the 1930s by the borough president. It was then transferred to the Parks Department for our maintenance responsibility, just as the other malls on Allen Street were. And we have tried once before to discuss this with City DOT as far as activating this site and what that would entail, since it is within their jurisdiction. And it was concluded between both our agencies that the best result for this would be just to demap this and create this as a public parkland, so that only the Parks Department and our concession rules would be applied for this building and for whatever operation would occupy it. So the two actions before you are, again, the demapping of Allen Street between Rivington and Delancey. It was, again, decided by DOT and Parks that the best result for this, in order to have a concession, would be to demap this and map it as parkland. And the other action before you is to specifically designate Allen Street between Delancey and Rivington as a wide street, because after mapping it as parkland, the mall will bifurcate these north and southbound lanes to create two narrow streets. So that does not affect any of the buildings on Allen Street between Delancey and Rivington. We're asking for the definition to be changed to a wide street for this particular block. And that is it. Yes.
Okay, thank you. My understanding was it was 138 feet, now it would be 56 and 56. So that's the need for the redefinition. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Commissioner Benjamin.
I only have one question. I'll be really quick and I'll talk really fast. The Department of Transportation could do the same program as a revocable consent. Why was it determined that DOT should not do revocable consent and that the property should be turned over to Parks for?
The transfer of the malls to the Parks Department's maintenance responsibility happened in the 1920s. That's all that was transferred. But the actual restroom facility itself and other restrooms that were built in the street right-of-ways were specifically management and jurisdiction were transferred to the Parks Department. So the DOT actually doesn't have jurisdiction of the building itself, but they do have jurisdiction of the mall. We cannot operate the building alone without the adjacent mall. So it was determined the best result would be to demap the entire mall and bring it over to the Parks Department, jurisdiction and maintenance responsibility.
All right. And when will the request for interest or request for proposals or whatever you're going to, will it just be to operate the restroom or will it be for the entire program?
For the entire mall, you mean?
Mm-hmm.
So we sent out on January 2nd a notice to the community board and the borough president, letting them know that we will be issuing the RFP for a future concession at the site. And we'll just wait for the responses after that's issued to see what kind of proposals the public has for the site. So it will be to operate the restroom and the building, and then depending on how much of the adjacent area they are looking as part of their concession, or just operating it outside of the concession and just operating it as with tables and chairs that are open to the public. So it's kind of fluid. We don't have a specific target in mind, and we'll just open it up to the public and wait to see.
And if you don't get any responses that include the restroom, or if you don't get any responses, what then? Will parks operate the restroom themselves?
At this time, we're not capable of restoring the restrooms. It's been heavily vandalized since the mid-1980s. So right now, we don't have it in our budget to open up the restrooms on their own. There's also an issue of not having enough staff for that particular site because it is a standalone site on its own. There's not a larger park around it, so there's not a dedicated staff for this area.
So if this proposal, there weren't responses, then the restroom will stay closed?
For the time being, until we can come up with another solution.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Osorio?
Thank you, Chair. Thanks so much for the presentation. I had two quick follow-up questions to additional points in the discussion at the certification that I don't think were fully addressed earlier, but I might just ask you directly because I think they're questions for parks. So the first one is in terms of the materials have stated, and it's clear that the community board and the board president have highlighted the importance of community engagement in terms of designing what's going to happen. And you just mentioned there's going to be an RFP, but does the public and the organizations that have been doing a lot of the groundwork for decades on this particular site or the future of this site been involved in terms of framing that potential RFP, or are you waiting to see what happens here before you can incorporate any of that? I just didn't see any potential plan or on how the public engagement, process will work before the RFP is out, when arguably it may be already too late.
Primarily, the engagement is with the community board, and so we have gone to them explaining. I mean, the community board, we've been talking to them since about 2018 for this proposal. So they have had ideas even then. There was an effort to do an RFP with them at that particular time, but then it was discussed between our legal divisions of City DOT and Parks, like I said before, that we need to demap this first. So the demapping would come first, and then again we would engage with the community board to solicit an RFP that meets the what they desire for the site.
Thank you. Yeah, that answers my question, and I understand the rationale for getting this demap first and then moving forward, but I would certainly go beyond the community board. I mean, I have a lot of high regards for the work of the community board, but also this is one of the most organized communities in the city with a lot of nonprofit advocacy organizations that extend beyond that, with a proven record of including plans for the site. So I would encourage you to reach out to them as well, sooner rather than later, and hopefully reflect some of their priorities in the RFP. It would be a great opportunity to engage everybody in planning for the site. And then the other is a quick question, which follows up on something that we also discussed at certification, but follows really well on Commissioner Benjamin's question. So in potential redevelopment scenarios here, do you see the public bathroom still operating? I mean, the question was about, what happens if you don't get any proposals to the RFP. But in terms of what we're aiming for, is the idea here, are we encouraging a public bathroom of sorts? The public bathroom building, totally agree with you, requires to be basically rethought and replanned. But the public bathroom as a service seems to be an important amenity here. Are you including that in the RFP, or is there an intention to maintain it?
Yes, of course. So the RFP will include opening up the restroom facility to the public and being maintained by the concessionaire.
Okay, great. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thanks, Commissioner. Commissioner Mann?
I just had a quick question, which I know is out of the scope of this application, but just in terms of the Allen Street malls as a unit of public space, can you just help me understand why it doesn't make sense for parks to map them as parkland as a unit rather than doing it one block sort of for this RFP? Just help me understand the policy.
Sure. So The Allen Street malls, from Delancey Street, actually north, so they were originally built in the 1920s, and they've been under the management of the Parks Department ever since. They're not unique in that respect. We have many triangles and malls throughout the city that are in the map right-of-way, but have been assigned to the Parks Department for their maintenance. And it's worked out okay between our agencies. We haven't really had any issues with that. The areas south of them are part of the Green Streets Agreement with the City DOT, and those are, again, more modern right-of-way developments with landscaping, and the agreement has been in place since 2007, actually, our first agreement with them. And so any landscaping that's done in the right-of-way for a substantial area that the Parks Department can maintain, we've included in those type of arrangements. Really, the only condition that we needed to solve for here is the structure. Permitting for DEP, DOB, that all require block and lots, and they require one agency to really have assignment of it. And so it was just seemed to be streamline this in order to get the concession done, that we just map this as parkland.
Got it. Okay. So theoretically, if, this is successful and there's other concessions that, want to pop up in the other malls, kiosks, that kind of thing, we'd have to go to a similar process. So that's probably a theoretical construct, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it would depend really on what would be proposed for it. I mean, This has a structure, it needs, water, it needs services, utilities, and so this was a little more complicated than, a pop-up that might be proposed in another mall.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I don't have any more questions for you, so thank you very much for being with us today. I also don't see members of the public who wish to be heard on calendar number 7 or 8, so I'll close the hearing on the Allen Street Mall demapping, and we'll move on to the next item for today.
Thank you, Chair. Borough of Staten Island, calendar numbers 9 and 10, Community District 1, calendar number 9, C 250318 ZMR, calendar number 10, N 250320 ZRR, public hearing in the matter of applications for zoning map and zoning text amendments concerning 37-59 Hamilton Avenue rezoning. There'll be a 10-minute team presentation in person.
Great. And that team includes William Robertson, Emmanuel Kokonakis, Deirdre Carson, and Raina Wong. Welcome. Hello.
I would like to correct that. It's Armand Quadrini. Mr. Robertson is not expected to speak.
Okay, we will correct that in the record here and welcome you.
Thank you very much. Yeah,
let's hold the clock for a second and make sure we're set up here. No, that's no problem.
In a while. How do I get it back to the beginning? Yeah. Okay, and then this.
The presentation isn't showing at her screen.
Yes. Okay. All right. So sorry about that. Chair Garodnick and Commissioners, good morning. I'm Deirdre Carson of Greenberg Traurig, representing the applicant. I'll present the land use actions we're requesting for the project and the context in which they're proposed. The proposed project is located in Staten Island on the north side of Hamilton Avenue between Stuyvesant Street and St. Mark's Place in an R6 district within the Special Hillside Preservation District. The zoning lot has an area of slightly over 53,000 square feet. The applicant seeks 4 actions. The first is a rezoning of most of the zoning lot from R6 to R7-3 with a small C24 overlay. Note that the easternmost part of the site is already rezoned. That was done in 2021. We also seek to remove the property from the Special Hillside Preservation District and place it in the adjacent Special St. George District. Amend the St. George text to revise the map of the Upland Subdistrict to include the site and map an extension of the Staten Island Area 5 MIH District to include our site. The physical context of this is shown in the map here. The physical context of the site is a block containing two 20-story towers built in the 1970s, a development parcel called River North adjacent to the site to the east that was rezoned R73 with a C24 overlay in 2021, and several smaller sites at the northeastern side of the block that are the subject of another pending application for rezoning to R73. Across St. Mark's Place from the site, this is on the left side of the photograph, is the landmarked Curtis High School. To the right, at the bottom of the hill, and a block away from Hamilton Avenue, is the wheel site, former wheel site, which is now the subject of a redevelopment plan being spearheaded by EDC. While historically developed with single-family homes, higher density structures have long been present on either side of the site, which is on the right-hand side of this picture. You can see the apartment houses on the left side of the street and the 20-story buildings on the right side of the photograph. And this is looking down Hamilton Avenue towards the water from the top of the hill at St. Mark's Place. This is at the top of St. Mark's Place where you see Castleton Apartments to the left, former site of the Hotel Castleton, which burned in 1907. The site is highly transit-oriented. Two bus lines stop on St. Mark's Place outside the project's proposed front door. Numerous bus lines run along Richmond Terrace with stops a block from the foot of Hamilton Avenue. These lines lead to and from the St. George Ferry Terminal, as well as the termini of the Staten Island Railway and many of the bus lines that serve the island. The applicant is proposing a new mixed-use building containing up to 369 housing units, retail and community facility use, 146 parking spaces, and a publicly accessible open space. The architect, Armand Quadrini, will now tell you more about the proposed building.
Good morning. I'm Armand Quadrini, Managing Partner at KSQ Architects. As Ms. Carson mentioned, my portion will discuss the building design with specific focus on the deployment of the bulk and the development of the exterior architectural character. Moving to the site plan, there are purposely various numbers of stories in the proposed development, including 3, 6, 8, 16, and 18-story elements. We purposefully set the street walls back from St. Mark's and Hamilton Avenue as much as possible, so 23 feet offset for St. Mark's and 18 feet 7 inches on Hamilton Avenue. The strategy here is to make as generous as possible walking corridors for safety and also for planting, so we have landscape on both flanks of the building. The 16-story piece is right about in the center of the site. It's 43 feet 10 inches offset from the curb edge of Hamilton, and the 18-story piece is 60 feet set back. This is an axonometric that shows the neighboring buildings, Castleton Park to the north. This does include River North when it is built to the east, and then to the south is 36 and 60 Hamilton. The strategy for the deployment of the bulk is very simple. It's to put the highest elements of the proposed development, the 16 and 18-story pieces, adjacent to Castleton Park and to River North, and then the lower scale pieces along St. Mark's and Hamilton. I'm going to move now to talk about the development of the exterior architectural character. Consistent with our history of work with both Mega and Billy Stein, we really work hard to study the existing architectural language in the neighborhood to make a building that's materiality is very contextual. We went to the Curtis High School. This is a landmark building. The predominant characteristics of the materiality include buff and sand-colored brick in a blended capacity. There's a lot of patina color green metal, as well as sandstone, or in our case, we'll do a cast stone to bring that forward. So in the proposed development, these are the colors and textures that we borrowed from Curtis. Again, our building will be very modern in its look and feel, but the materiality we think is really important to have it blend with this landscape building that's directly across the street from us. The last pieces of the presentation that I'll lead this morning are a walk down Hamilton. So you're seeing, again, that the blend of the buff and the sand color brick, strong horizontal datum along St. Mark's. This denotes the community facility use there, also puts a lid on the pedestrian experience along St. Mark's. Moving down, again, we're still at the top of Hamilton, is one of the main entrances to the residential development. You see that the angle peels off underneath the street wall and gets access to the main amenity spaces and the front door. A single access point for the parking garage is very deliberate. This improves safety, so we only have vehicles crossing Hamilton in one location. And we worked hard to make sure we're announcing that crossing. I'm super proud of the public open space that's proposed at the bottom of Hamilton. We think of this as a second entrance to the development for our residents. So if you're in a wheelchair, if you have a stroller, et cetera, you would actually be able to come down and exit almost to the bottom of Hamilton near Stuyvesant. This open public space makes a gesture to River North. We hope that they'll have a reciprocal open space and really a true community asset for contemplative and active outdoor space. This has ADA access along Hamilton, and again, making that connectivity with River North. Thank you so much. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Kokonakis.
Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. Emmanuel Kokonakis with Mega. I'm going to talk through some more programming and economic development aspects of the project here. So to recap quickly, 369 units. We're looking at 111 permanently affordable housing units. We're looking at option 2 from an MIH perspective at 30% at 80% AMI. We're going to have some retail and community facility space as well that we look to program with complementary community uses, as well as the open space and the parking. Here's a quick description of our unit mix here. As we previously mentioned throughout, we view this as a highly transit-oriented development. Within a 10-minute walk from the Staten Island Ferry, with the expanded services coming online, we're truly excited about the transit-oriented aspects about this development. So we have a nod to studio and one-bedrooms that we think will complement the transit-orientedness of the project, but as well as a good number of 2-bedroom and 3-bedroom units, 10% 3-bedrooms to complement growing family needs. We're going to look to develop this as a Class A type product, highly amenitized, to be competitive with other waterfront communities. We view on-site cafe and working space as a critical component of any new development, as well as both active and passive uses, as well as capabilities for food delivery in this new age of Amazon and Fresh Direct and the like, as we look for the local community to expand on its community services with supermarkets and whatnot as time develops. We're going to try to achieve as close to carbon neutrality as we can with the project. We are going to be certainly full electric with no gas on site. We're going to be exploring geothermal feasibility here as well. The rock profile is actually relatively high for this site, which hopefully will allow for, will be conducive for a nice geothermal system. Quickly touching on economic development, Mega has a long history and track record of working with HPD on a lot of affordable housing projects, and we're thoroughly well-versed in local recruiting and hiring through Hire NYC, as well as meeting and exceeding MWB goals on all our projects.
Time.
Thank you.
That was well done, I must say. Okay, thank you very much for that. Let me see what questions we have. We're going to start with Commissioner Gold and Commissioner Cerullo.
Hi, thank you. So a couple of questions. First, I'm trying to picture this and know the area pretty well. We're at the bottom of the hill, or sort of in the middle of that steep hill that's coming down towards Stuyvesant? Is that the location? So it's right at that corner?
We're along the hill.
Along the hills. So the precinct is on, is sort of, I'm trying to think.
To our east, yes.
Is Richmond Terrace right to the east? Okay. So I guess one of the issues that the community board raised, and I would say to you is very valid, is they're concerned about infrastructure, but also I think one of the issues with the area, having grown up there, is the lack of supply of food stores, right? Basics of a neighborhood, right? I'm thinking through, I don't remember there being a dry cleaner. Like, the neighborhood is still really early. Speak for a second, if you can, about what the conversation maybe was with community board as far as allaying some of that. There's only so much that one can do, but are there, thoughts, things? I know there's a Western Beef a few blocks away, if it's still there. Is it still there? Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I'm getting a dirty look on that one. But that's, in that area, some would say it's walkable. I would say to you, it's not really walkable. It's far, particularly with groceries. So just, if you can speak about the area, I know the Empire outlets were supposed to really revitalize it, but it never really worked. And so if you can just both update a little bit and then speak a little bit about how the team is thinking about that, and providing for folks in some of that infrastructure. Thanks.
Absolutely. And I think we share the same view as far as availability of community resources. I think what we've seen in other neighborhoods is driving density is going to allow to have those complements come in and be part of not only our development, but future developments. As you mentioned, there's only so much that we can accomplish. Our site, unfortunately, isn't necessarily, highly retail driven, not necessarily appropriate for a lot of the ground floors here. But we are going to try to, encourage, from the retail perspective, like a dry cleaners or something along those lines. And, from a community facility perspective, whether it's daycare uses along those lines, we try to target complementary community uses. And, from an amenity perspective as well, just to take advantage of modern technology from a delivery perspective to be able for residents, to utilize all the services available. As that infill comes in, as we hope, driven through density, to make the neighborhoods more walkable, to then bring that more hyper-local.
So, enlighten us. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Just want to add, we have spoken with EDC about their plans with respect to the wheel site. And I think we have a picture of what their concept is, and I'm sure all of you have seen that picture. But they are contemplating a fairly dense residential development on the wheel site. And the reinvigoration of the Empire stores with some of these types of uses that we all are aware are in short supply in this part of Staten Island. So with River North hopefully coming online sometime in the next few years, our development, there's another one proposed for this block with the development of the wheel site and the reinvigoration of the Empire stores. We are hopeful. And we know from reading the materials that EDC has online that a very important issue discussed in their meetings with members of the public has been the need for a good grocery store at this location. So we think that's going to be a priority.
One more, if I can. Just enlighten us a little bit as to what the conversation was, if any, with both the community board and perhaps the borough president's office. As to, when they think about it holistically, what are they asking for? And I guess I want to sort of preface this with, there's nothing that I'd like to see more than this area getting invigorated as a neighborhood. But in my life, and I haven't lived there for many years, there have been so many false starts where folks have hoped, and candidly, I'm sure that you're also hoping for this invigoration. Otherwise, we wouldn't be making this investment. But at the same time, it's just, the neighborhood's had a lot of those false starts, and it's been, years and years from the home port, if you think about it, to everything else that was supposed to come here. So we just want to, sort of encourage the thinking to make sure that everyone's successful. So just, if you can, I suspect they had some requests.
Some of this is obviously based on speculation, but my client and I were talking at the beginning of this about how Staten Island is, at least the St. George area and the waterfront, is the new frontier. There are fewer opportunities for development certainly in Manhattan and now in downtown Brooklyn and Long Island City than there once were. But the community board their basic view is they don't like density. They don't like high-rise. They don't like large apartment buildings. They don't like renters. They only like homeowners. And all the things that are associated with rentals in their minds, parking issues, potential traffic issues. They talked about, water, the issues associated with the Hillside Preservation District. The reason for its initial enactment in the 80s, which has been rendered somewhat anachronistic as a result of federal, state, and local laws that now regulate the way that you treat stormwater. All of those things were of concern to them. But we think, our client thinks, that this is a location which is appropriate for more density. It is close to it is, first of all, it's on a block that already has some density. It is a good location from a transit perspective, so that it's a good place for people to get into the rest of the city from the island. The addition of the fast ferry has made that, provided another option of getting straight to Brooklyn from Staten Island. So change is moving into the neighborhood. And yes, it's true, but there have been now developments in the South. There's the Irby development. There's some stuff in Tompkinsville, the Lighthouse Project. There are a number of, they're slowly picking up. It's true that River North hasn't been developed, but my suspicion is that with what is now going on, the activity going on there and the potential for the EDC action on the wheel site, that's going to change. So that's partly speculation. But the community board didn't like density. That's the sum and substance of it.
Got it. So there weren't any suggestions, if you will. It was more the density.
There was a certain attitude of we'd prefer to keep the single-family homes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Cerullo.
So, first of all, thank you. And this conversation, and Commissioner Gold, I appreciate the questions, kind of rearrange my questions. So I'm going to jump in sort of where we just left off. And I would say, I think one of the big issues for anyone coming to build in this area is that the world we're entering is so different than the world anyone is used to in this area. And it definitely needs the development, and opposing density hasn't stopped the Stapleton waterfront rezoning, Bay Street corridor, St. George rezoning. It didn't stop River North. It didn't stop any of those projects. So, but there is still a concern. There's also a lot of distrust, and the island is lacking in every community of the island in infrastructure beyond the supermarket and the dry cleaner, schools. I mean, I love the idea of, 3-bedroom units, family-style units being in the mix of this development, but schools for kids. And I think that the discussion raises, and I'll try to be specific, the community board, there were stories in the local newspaper about parking. And I know this obviously is, when you look at this site and you look at the North Shore, and I'm a neighbor here, I'm also a child not born on Staten Island, but raised pre-bridge, and know this area. I live in this area. The idea that it's near the ferry and there are 2 bus lines, that doesn't mean, that's great if you work in Manhattan, or you can walk to the ferry and the fast ferry now and get to the Upper West Side or into Brooklyn. People's lives involve their vehicles there, whether that's right or wrong, and that's a whole other discussion and debate that I'm not intending to have with you or any of my colleagues here. We all have very different opinions about cars. But on the island, you need your car, even if you can get to a bus. You don't take your bus to your dry cleaner or the supermarket or to visit your mother or to go to your sister's house or to go to the mall. That's not how people are getting around. So parking is always going to be an issue here. And I know it was raised at the community board level and publicly. Has there been any consideration about the element of parking in this project? And is there any room for addressing that issue, whether or not there's consensus on that in this body or in the council, but there is a real issue about people's attachment to their vehicles, and the number of units in this building and the number of bedrooms also might yield more than one driver in a home. So I just wondered on that thought, what you've been contemplating since the public hearing at the community board.
Absolutely. Thank you, Commissioner. The parking, I would say, we view it certainly as a market condition for Staten Island, so I think we fully recognize the need to be competitive in this marketplace from a housing perspective. There needs to be complementary parking. I would say that there's public lots within walking distance, but aside from that, our parking estimate is a self-park estimate.
Mm-hmm.
And, within the confines of zoning and our environmental analyses, if there's a market need and demand to increase, to attend the parking spot, to put in stackers, I think we have flexibility within the bulk to leave extra height as well, to be able to adapt and meet any market needs.
Okay. I appreciate that. I also want to acknowledge, Deirdre, in your response earlier to David, your conversation and investigation into what was happening on the waterfront with the RFP with EDC. I think one of the issues also that the community is dealing with in a very short window of time is multiple projects that have not been realized. In some cases, the community has been burned by the history of River North. Is not a pleasant one in terms of what they came to us for, what they got from the council, and then what they ultimately decided to do. So there's sort of a bad taste in the mouth of also having to deal with the change of the reality of what the world we're living in. But we don't look at what's happening elsewhere generally. We have each applicant on their own. They know what's happening next door and across the street, but it's not being looked at. So the idea that you tried to tie in some of the plans that EDC has out in their RFP and how that could be linked to benefits for this development is very much appreciated. So I want to say that.
Yeah, I just want to say on that regard that they're anticipating between the 1,200 parking spaces in the Empire stores and the 820 parking spaces extant in the wheel site.
Mm-hmm.
They told us that they believe they would not fill those with all of the people they would be putting in their buildings, and that would provide another opportunity for people to get parking who might reside in our building.
Yeah, they would be able to. I was going to ask that if there was any expectation that the garage would remain. I mean, I hope it remains, and that it isn't destroyed in a redesign of the space.
That's what they said to us. Now I
know.
I can't speak for them.
And yes, none of us can, but we'll see what happens. I'm going to just ask a question that was originally my first question, but I didn't want to lose the flow here. And let me ask you this: if you're coming to us, and I realize what's happening around, and the commission did approve this piece of the site when River North was before us, and then the council removed it. And so we're back again with trying to rationalize this again. What would you or could you develop in the existing R6 here? What would be the difference, and why is it important to give it the R7 designation and then also move it from Hillsides to the St. George Special District? Like what would the as of right development opportunity be for you versus what you want to do?
So in our analysis, we came up with an as of right that would put a building at the top of the hill, which, by the way, that is not, I think probably that part of the hotel was built on that piece because it's flat. And then it sort of terraces down for these individual houses. So what we did was we looked at we divided it into two zoning lots, and we put one building at the top of the hill on the flat piece, and we put another at the bottom of the hill on the two bottom tax lots. And we got 119 units. The building at the bottom of the hill was not a great building, and that's partly because of the way when they did the rezoning for River North, they split that lot so that most of it is in the R7-3 and the rest is in the R6. The hillside preservation zoning has laudable objectives for the time, the desire to protect against erosion and stormwater runoff, both of which are, as I mentioned earlier, things that we've addressed by other environmental statutes since that time. But they are extremely restrictive as to what can be developed. They talk about parking. The thing that restricts your ability to build really is the limitation on parking. You can't have a facility that has more than 30 spaces in it, or more, 30 or more. So that is extremely restricting. There are very strong restrictions on lot coverage, very strong restrictions on retention of trees and shrubs and other plantings in order to, all of this was done, it's built on top of a geological formation of serpentinite. This is right at the edge of it. This is the hill that it comes down to meets the water. And there's not a lot of land, of soil above the rock. And that's why they were so concerned about the erosion. It's a fair thing to be concerned about. But the result of that is that in requiring these very high planting requirements, very low lot coverage, restricting the parking and all the rest, it makes it very difficult to develop. It really makes it very hard to come up with a good, useful alternative that would use all of the existing FAR.
I mean, that makes sense. I just wondered what the community could end up with in a different version.
The different version under the existing zoning would be a building at the top of the hill and a building at the bottom of the hill. There might be some applications for some authorizations for modifications of the Hillside Preservation District regulations at the bottom of the hill.
Okay, I appreciate that. One final question. Option 2, how did you get there? Just wondering what the thought process was in choosing option 2.
We've had very preliminary conversations with the council member here, so I think we're going to engage in further discussions on the option and the MIH options here and the levels of affordability. I'd say also from a community perspective as well, I think it would be the more preferred mix of more middle income versus a tier of lower income from our experience. But we're going to certainly engage and get a temperature of the council member on how we can be the most efficient there.
Okay, good. Look, I know that Staten Island's sort of an interesting, Staten Island's sort of an interesting community. The AMI, the numbers don't always work the same as they do in other communities because the AMI kind of falls into a place where you can end up in a market rate situation. It's a very sort of interesting math, MIH, as it applies to Staten Island, given what's going on in that neighborhood. I just wondered what the sort of the rationale is. I'm not surprised by the answer and the conversations that you're having, which I'm sure will yield, the best possible option for the community. But I thank you very much, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, for permitting the length of questions. So
got it, Commissioner. Thank you. Commissioner Osorio?
Thank you, Chair. Thanks so much for the presentation and for addressing our questions. A lot of my questions have been already addressed. I mean, I mostly just wanted to give you an opportunity to respond, as my colleagues have, to the comments from the community board and the board president. Perhaps a couple quick things that I just wanted to follow up on that. In the comments that we got, certainly I had noted the request for deeper affordability. So to build on Commissioner Cerullo's question, I would certainly encourage you to consider deeper within constraints, et cetera. But I specifically wanted to follow up on two quick things in the community board's comments, there's also a mention about infrastructure requirements regarding utilities and emergency services, and I was wondering if you can share a little bit more about that. And again, thanks so much to the department for clarifying the response to my question earlier, but I'm wondering if you can say or expand a little bit on your analysis. What can you share with the public right now to make sure people feel safe that the proposed development will have sufficient infrastructure to respond on those two ends?
Health and safety services.
I know from a utility perspective, we're early to engage with conversations with Con Ed, but we're familiar working with their processes to ensure full electrification here. I know, sewer and runoff is a big concern that was voiced in the conversations as well. And I think we're, very accustomed to and have deployed, SWIPs across our projects here. So we expect the site retention conditions to actually improve with the development through both roof detention and detention tanks on site. So we think we'll be able to address those concerns. As far as from an emergency perspective, I'm not sure if that was addressed in some of our environmental analyses or not, but I can't honestly say that we've engaged in conversations with the precinct or fire departments as of yet, but that's all part of our development process, getting the necessary approvals that we expect to get.
I just want to say the question about health and emergency services was never raised until the written document appeared. So at that time, it was too late for us to address it in any meetings with them.
Thank you. I appreciate your responses, and anything that you can share with us, maybe in your follow-up, would be appreciated, just for us to also have a sense of, what you're seeing and what your research shows you. There's so much we have based on the fact that this is, being fast-tracked and the lack of a full EIS and so forth. But I had another quick question, if you don't mind. So in terms of the open space, thanks so much for the presentation. That was really useful. I was wondering if you can share a little bit more, maybe written materials regarding the actual design of the open space. I'm also specifically interested in what is the actual amount of acreage per 1,000 residents, and how much is this open space increasing, or how far will this get you? Just in terms of understanding, again, the existence of and the plan for proposed amenities to respond or address the additional density.
Excuse me, the footprint of the open space is about 1,200 square feet. This illustration depicts the flat part, which is immediately adjacent to the building. And then as we go down, let me actually go to this. We have an ADA. Yeah, so this is oriented the other way, but so that there's an ADA path from Hamilton onto the main plaza, and then the more contemplative bleacher-style seating that's masonry with plantings between spills down to the property line. And actually, the overall footprint exceeds 1,200, and I'll report back on the exact size. But so it's really from the right where it says Shop Cafe all the way to the right is the outdoor public open space, all the way down to another flat area that flanks River North.
Thank you. I have one last question. Okay, thank you. So anything that you can provide just to also see the entire open space, and also maybe like a cross-section would be useful, with an emphasis on green infrastructure. I see a lot of impermeable surfaces, and would you like to understand kind of like what's the plan? But the quick question that I had, it had to do with the energy matrix. Thanks so much for your comment about geothermal. I would love to see more information on that, if you can provide understanding that you're just considering it for now. But it sounds important here. Thanks for clarifying that you could be fully electric. But I want to understand what type of renewables are you considering, and also maybe perhaps if you can say something now, and if not, through your follow-up, what's the level of energy efficiency that you're seeking? What's the standard? Just for us to understand sort of like, really how this is going to work out.
Yeah, we commonly achieve enterprise green across all our projects. So I think as a baseline standard, that's what we look to achieve here. We look to, inform passive-like elements as far from a insulating perspective, both from exterior wall and roofing perspective as well. It's good for the long-term energy efficiency and health of the buildings. We've done geotechnical analysis, but we're very early. The energy model is dependent on loads and from unit counts and unit mixes and whatnot, so it's very sensitive. So we haven't been able to perfect that to maximize energy efficiency at this point, but it's a goal across all our projects.
Thank you. That's really useful. Anything you can provide just to understand what the plan is, try to achieve that would be useful. Also, just to honor the concern that on whether there is enough infrastructure capacity for the density that you're proposing. Thank you so much for that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Mann?
Hi. I just wanted to understand a little better the interaction of this building with what is planned on River North. It was alluded to a couple of times, and I'm not totally clear myself on sort of what that, I guess it's the northern edge of the building.
Of course, we don't really know what River North is going to look like because they surrendered their special permit and they're going to be building as of right. But what was approved were a series of buildings at the foot of Hamilton extending to the north. According to the drawings I've seen, and I may have this wrong, 3 buildings. 2 of them would have reached the maximum height permitted in the district, and the third one would not. But some of the people on this commission would probably know better than I, because they were there when the approvals were granted. So
this is with the R73 as of right envelope, what you're showing here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, I think obviously one of the challenges of private applications is, the planning framework doesn't always necessarily all add up here, and I can see some of the sort of urban design confusion of this outcome in particular, where your views from your building are blocked by their R73, which is probably one of the economic propositions of this project, I imagine, is the views of Lower Manhattan and the skyline, and also the open space at the ground floor. Again, you alluded to in your presentation the hope that there'd be some kind of connection between your proposed open space and theirs. And just, this strikes me as actually, I think there's lots of different kinds of density, I don't want to give an urban design talk here accidentally, but making sure the density actually works well together, and creates a new, exciting neighborhood, as opposed to feeling overwhelming as a place, is a thing I was just wrestling with here. And that the R73 envelope that you're seeking allows you other options besides this framework, right? There's not really any specific urban design controls other than what's in the St. George district around base heights. So you're sort of showing it what again, you can characterize it differently if I'm getting this wrong, but as an illustrative massing drawing, because depending on what the River North folks do, you may respond differently, again, to maximize views and view corridors. Which I don't think I don't cast that as a critique. I'm just trying to understand here a little more. Let me get to a question maybe. How do you think about that evolving discussion around River North and how that might end up changing your own site plan as you think through your development options?
I'm sure that Mr. Kokkinakis has his own thoughts on that. I'm just going to say that I think we're going to go ahead and build our project. We're not going to wait to see what they do.
And to your point, obviously, from a marketing perspective, the views are going to be spectacular from this site, and the view portals are critical. But I think for us, it's a balance of being, to your point about from a density perspective, not being too heavy on the street wall with our height, where that might necessarily maximize our view corridors, but might not be the most respectful and responsive to the community. So I think it's a balance of having the bulk setback from the street wall and street line, and being able to also maximize views.
Got it. Okay. And then just one other question. And again, I appreciate this puts you in a challenging dynamic of trying to sort through an urban design solution. We don't totally know exactly what's happening next door. But just in the conversations around on Curtis High School, I thought it was very thoughtful of you all to think about the design relationship and spend a little more time there to make sure it feels like it's part of that neighborhood and not alien from it. Just curious if you had any conversations with them about what are the issues around school drop-off, pickup, just neighborhood kind of traffic flows and congestion, pedestrian safety for the kids, crosswalks, those kinds of things. Does that come up at all in your discussions?
Not at this point, but we're familiar building next door, across the street from a lot of schools, and have ongoing coordination. So we'll, when we're closer to construction, from a construction logistics perspective, we'll be sure to coordinate from a transportation and pedestrian safety perspective.
Okay, great. Yeah, I mean, I think obviously if we're trying to, encourage people to not use cars as much as possible, improving the pedestrian movements here, I'm sure will be helpful in that regard. Okay, thank you for answering the questions.
May I clarify?
Go ahead.
An earlier response? So
Yes.
that block on the lower right that says landscaped open space, that block at the lower right that says landscaped open space is 2,500 square feet. And then when you add the ADA access and the lower tiered part, we're well over 3,000 feet for public open space, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thank
you for that. Okay, let me see if there are more questions for the applicant team. Okay, seeing none, well, thank you very much for being with us today. And we're now going to move to public comments on calendars 9 and 10, starting with Michael Harwood, who is joining us on Zoom, to be followed by Mary Sobachowski by phone and Eric Nielsen by Zoom. So we've got some virtual participation here for this hearing, and we will see these three in turn. Let's start with Michael Harwood, please.
Michael, can you unmute?
Okay, can you hear me now? I just apologize for that.
Yes.
We can hear you.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner. My name is Michael Harwood. I've been living in this neighborhood for 40 years, both as a homeowner, and I owned two other houses with 5 or 6 rental units in it, so I'm very familiar with the development. My problem here is not with issues so much as the density, as others have talked about. This project would add 369 units in this location, in addition to the nearly 800 units already approved at River North, which is 1,200 units on 2 very narrow streets leading on a very steep hill. And as was alluded to, the EDC is talking about putting project at the bottom of the hill that could have as many as 2,500 units. So adding nearly 4,000 units to a very narrow streetscape is just too much density for this area. While the neighborhood does need additional housing, both affordable market rate as well as ownership, putting this much in one place is really just more than the neighborhood can absorb. It's not city planning, it's bad planning. And indeed, the way the project is designed, excuse me, is designed really to encourage people to live there and leave the island and not really participate in the community. It's clearly focused toward getting to the ferry and getting out of the island quickly as possible. Even the amenity they included of adding a refrigerated delivery space is designed to get people to have food delivered and not really go shopping and take advantage of opportunities in the neighborhood. And looking specifically about the density issue, people have been talking for years, this neighborhood needs more density in order to bring the services. What it really needs is good planning that encourages people to want to live there. I've looked at the recent census data. This neighborhood already has approximately 57,000 people per square mile, which is between 75 and 85% of the density in neighborhoods like Brooklyn Heights, Park Slope, and Boerum Hill. And you already have services they have based on that. So the density we currently have has not invited that, that kind of amenities, restaurants, grocery stores, et cetera. And so this project is not designed to encourage that, but in fact will make things worse by adding to the traffic flow, the other issues. There's really space for the Ubers and Fresh Direct trucks to come in, and it's going to cause more problems and not encourage people to want to access services in the area. The real concern here is too much in one space. When River North was approved as R7, we were told, don't worry, this is a one-off. We're not going to be changing the character of the neighborhood. And now that precedent has been set and we're already jumping in for another R7. This location would be perfect for what currently allowed under R6. 120 in this neighborhood,
Time.
which would allow for
Thank
more
you.
open space. This project has, let me just very quickly, Commissioner.
Thank you,
has
Mr.
virtually
Harwood.
no
Time.
Thank you. Okay. We appreciate your being with us. Thank you. We heard you loud and clear. Thank you. Okay, Mary Sobachowski.
Mary is not in the Zoom.
Okay, Eric Nilsson. And with apologies to those who are testifying, if we have a time limit, so we just ask that you wrap up by 3 minutes. Okay, we'd rather not mute you, is what I'm trying to say. Okay, thank you. All right, Madam Secretary.
Eric? There he is.
Hello, Mr. Nielsen.
Hi, my name's Eric. Thank you for giving me time to speak on this today. I want to speak to this as a former resident of Staten Island, with someone that had family there, living there until very recently. And Staten Island, that I've always known, has been one where, especially St. George neighborhood, has always been on the cusp of getting there into turning into developing. Never really gets there. And yes, the services in the neighborhood are lacking, but if you have the assumption, if you want to open up a business there, but you assume everyone has cars, you're not going to, okay, I guess to frame this better, the assumption that everyone's going to have a car and drive around and be able to drive out of the neighborhood to get services. What incentives are there for people to actually build the services in the community itself when people aren't walking there? This is a chicken egg problem that Staten Island just seems on its own to have that the rest of the city doesn't really have, where the expectation of you have to have a car to function, because if everyone always has cars to function, you're assuming everyone has cars, you don't building anything to actually service people that want to walk to your place. That said, beyond that aspect, St. George as a neighborhood is excessively rent burdened. According to the New York City data, over 50% of the population there that's renting pays more than 30% of their income towards rent. This neighborhood, for that reason alone, this neighborhood desperately needs new development, especially affordable housing, which this development does. And it is transit oriented, even though people on here somehow saying that the ferry isn't transit and buses aren't transit, they are. Also, if you're near the ferry, you're also near the Staten Island Railroad too, which also counts as transit. So you're getting people incentive. So you're creating incentives to people to live there and not necessarily have to depend on a car. And also the Fresh Direct, having it there, maybe not good for developing services in the area. At least you're providing a reason for people to not have to drive to get groceries, which I think is a plus. New York City overall, all over the city, we're having issues with people being overly rent burdened, and we need new construction. And Staten Island definitely needs to do more in terms of allowing new construction to, especially affordable housing, to reduce people's rent burdens and accommodate more people in the city. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Okay, I do not see other members of the public wishing to be heard on calendars 9 and 10. Unless you prove me otherwise in the next moment or two, we will close the hearing on this item. So thank you very much. Madam Secretary, what's next?
Chair Garodnick, there's no other business before the Commission for the public meeting, but I do have some public information to share. For those of you who were unable to or did not wish to testify, you can submit written testimony online through DCP's website or by mailing your comments to City Planning Commission, Calendar Information Office, 120 Broadway, 31st floor, New York, New York, 10271. The time is 11:29.
Great, and we will adjourn the public meeting. Thank you. Now welcome back.
Welcome
Madam
back.
Secretary, over to you.
Special review session, and we will kick off this portion of today with the fourth item on our agenda, a certification of zoning map and zoning text amendments and special permits in Brooklyn Community District 3, and our presenter is David Weisglass.
Hello, David.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. All right. The project before you is an application for a zoning map amendment, a zoning text amendment, and 2 special permits at 2950 West 24th Street. There we go. The applicant here is Ocean Towers Partners, LLC. The project is located in Coney Island in Brooklyn Community District 13. The council member is Kayla Santos-Suoso. The proposal is an 18-story building with approximately 315,600 square feet of residential space for 408 income-restricted units, 10,900 square feet of community facility space, and approximately 7,800 square feet of commercial space. There is an existing 19-story building on the site with 360 income-restricted units that will not be altered as a part of this application. So the proposed building will be the second building on the site. The project also includes improvements to open space as well as alterations to the existing parking lot on the site. Here you can see the actions being requested. The first is a zoning map amendment, which I'll describe in detail later in the presentation. Next, a zoning text amendment to map MIH options 1 and 2 over the project area. And finally, 2 separate special permits are being requested. The first is a special permit per ZR section 74-743 to establish a large-scale general development, or LSGD, allowing the applicant to waive regulations on height and setback, distribution of bulk, and minimum distances between walls and windows. In addition, a permit per ZR section 7452 is required to allow the reduction of the required parking for the 2 buildings from 167 spaces to 143 spaces. This is an aerial view of the surrounding neighborhood with the project area outlined in blue. The site is comprised of 1 tax lot located in Coney Island, which you can see here with Seagate to the west and Brighton Beach to the east. The project area is located just 6 blocks west of the amusement area as designated in the 2009 Coney Island rezoning plan. There are notable open spaces in the area, in addition to the beach and Riegelman Boardwalk, just 1 block south of the project. 1 block to the north is Kaiser Park, a 26-acre park with several athletic fields and courts, as well as fishing areas and public restrooms. Over the Coney Island Creek is Calvert Vaux Park, an 85-acre park with basketball courts, baseball and soccer fields, playgrounds, and public restrooms. The site is located just over a half mile from the Coney Island Stillwell Avenue subway station, which serves the D, F, N, and Q trains. Here's a little closer view of the project area. The subject block is bound by Mermaid Avenue to the north, West 24th Street to the east, Surf Avenue to the south, and West 25th Street to the west. Surf Avenue is a 120-foot wide thoroughfare along which the X28 and X38 buses run, providing service to Lower Manhattan. The B36 bus provides service to Sheepshead Bay. Along Mermaid Avenue to the north, the B74 bus runs continuously from Seagate to the Coney Island Stillwell Avenue subway station. The project area is located 2 blocks from the Coney Island Amphitheater, 5 blocks from Maimonides Park, and 7 blocks from the Coney Island amusement area. There are several schools in the area, including PS 288, the Shirley Tannehill School, PS 329, the Surfside School, and IS 239, the Mark Twain School for the Gifted and Talented. An NYPD precinct is also found 1 block from the project area, as well as the NYCHA Coney Island sites 4 and 5, and the NYCHA Cary Gardens houses. Here you can see a land use map of the project area, with the project area and development site outlined in red. The project area encompasses all but the northernmost 100 feet of the subject block, which face Mermaid Avenue. You can see several community facility and institutional uses located to the east and west of the project area. In the north, you can find a blend of tower and the park-style residential developments, as well as 1- and 2-family row houses. To the north of the project area is Mermaid Avenue, an 80-foot wide street with a mix of residential uses, as well as 2- to 4-story mixed buildings with residences above lower-level retail. The project area and development site are comprised of Lot 13 of Block 7055. The entire project area is currently zoned R6, with the northernmost portion mapped with a C12 commercial overlay. R6 districts permit residential uses with a maximum FAR of 2.2 or 3.9 with qualifying affordable housing. A maximum base height of 45 feet is allowed, and a maximum building height of 85 feet is permitted. R6 zoning districts permit community facility uses at 4.8 FAR. Outside of the greater transit zone, where this project is located, parking is required for 50% of residential units and 25% of income-restricted residential units. Within a C12 overlay, commercial uses are permitted below residential uses at an FAR of 2.0. R5 districts, mapped to the north and south of the project area, allow residential uses at an FAR of 1.5 or 2.0 for qualifying residential sites. R5 districts have a maximum base height of 35 feet and a maximum building height of 45 feet, or 55 feet on a qualifying residential site. A minimum front yard of 10 feet is required, and parking is required for 35% of units in developments within the outer transit zone, and 50% of units outside of the greater transit zone. This is a flood map of the area showing that essentially the entirety of the surrounding area is located within an A zone, or a high-risk flood zone. Here's an aerial photo of the project area as it exists today, outlined in red. As mentioned, the project area is comprised of Block 7055, Lot 13. It was constructed in 1972 and exited the Mitchell-Lama program in 2006, but has been regulated under a new agreement with HPD since 2013. Here you can see in blue the existing building on the lot, a 19-story residential building with 360 income-restricted units, which would not be altered as a part of this project. It contains a mix of studio to 5-bedroom units, with about 70% of units containing 2 or more bedrooms. At the northern portion of the project area is an existing parking lot for the development, outlined in yellow, which includes 160 parking spaces, although only 117 spaces are required for the use per certificate of occupancy, and I'll touch upon that a little bit more in a bit. Finally, you can see the general location of the proposed building and the existing open space at the top of your screen. The open space today is landscaped, but generally inaccessible, surrounded by gates. I'd like to show a few images of the site here as it exists today. Here you can see an image of the existing 19-story residential building on the site, facing northwest from West 24th Street. This is an image of the subject property from West 24th Street, facing southwest. In the foreground, beyond the black fence, is the existing 160-space parking lot, and at the left side of the screen is the existing 19-story building on the lot. Here's an image of the subject property from West 24th Street facing south, and you can see the existing building in the image on the right side of the screen. This shows the project area from West 25th Street facing southeast. In the foreground here is the parking lot beyond the fence, and the existing building on the site is seen in the middle of the image. In the background to the left is Building 1 of the NYCHA Cary Gardens houses, located across West 24th Street from the project area. This is an image of the project area facing northeast from West 25th Street. In the background is the existing building, yet again, but in the foreground is the existing open space on the site, upon which the new building is to be constructed along West 25th Street. And this is an image of the project area facing northeast from the intersection of West 25th Street and Surf Avenue. Again, the proposed building is to be located on the existing open space in the foreground of the image here. The proposed development is an 18-story, approximately 334,000 square foot mixed-use building with 408 income-restricted residential units, 2 superintendent's units. The income-restricted units are to be developed pursuant to HPD's Extremely Low to Low Income Affordability Program, or ELA. The project also includes approximately 11,000 square feet of community facility space and approximately 8,000 square feet of commercial space. As noted, the proposal will also include the reduction of the parking lot requirement from 160 spaces to 143 spaces. If the project is approved, the full site will have 701,460 square feet of floor area with 770 total income-restricted units. This project also includes the refurbishment of many of the open spaces on the site, both internally and along the periphery of the site. Here you can see the proposed site plan. The existing building, which is to remain unaffected, is outlined in blue at the bottom of the screen, whereas the reduced parking lot is shown outlined in gold on the right side of the screen. The proposed development is an L-shaped building fronting West 25th Street and Surf Avenue, outlined here in pink. This is the full plan of the proposed large-scale general development, or LSGD, which is outlined here in red. As noted, the applicants are proposing several improvements to the site. Here you can see an open space plan of the existing and proposed buildings, with the proposed building at the top of the screen and the existing at the bottom. The open space between the two buildings is to include 2 playgrounds shown here in orange, as well as a series of different seating types along the walkways. A larger multi-purpose field and fitness area is to be located at the northern side of the open space between the 2 buildings. A new entry plaza with additional greenery and ornamental trees is proposed at the intersection of Surf Avenue and West 25th Street. Along West 25th Street and Surf Avenue, at the top left corner of the screen here, additional seating and foliage are proposed to enliven and activate the street. This is an aerial image of the site with a rendering of the building superimposed upon it. This rendering illustrates the project design utilizing several different materials along West 25th Street and Surf Avenue. And here you can also see the stepping up of the project towards the 120-foot wide Surf Avenue. As the project is located within the flood zone, I wanted to discuss the resiliency features of both the existing building and the proposed building, as the applicants have informed us of these elements. The existing building's lobby was flooded 4 feet during Hurricane Sandy. And as a result, management upgraded and replaced several elements, including elevators, boilers, heating pipes, and windows. In addition, 2 mechanical rooms were constructed upon the flooding area. In the proposed building, the applicant is raising the building to the design flood elevation, or DFE, which is equal to the base flood elevation plus a safety margin for future risk, adding additional protection. The basement is to be dry flood proofed. Additionally, the building is to be compliant with HPD guidelines to meet standards based on 2080 sea level rise calculations. As noted, 4 actions are being requested of the CPC today. The first is a zoning map amendment, which can be summarized in 3 parts. The entirety of the project area mapped R6 right now, and a portion of that R6 district will be rezoned in R73. That's part 1. A C24 commercial overlay is to be mapped over a portion of the R73 district along Surf Avenue. And finally, the depth of the existing C12 overlay mapped along Mermaid Avenue to the north will be reduced from 150 feet to 100 feet. Next, the applicant is requesting a zoning text amendment to map MIH options 1 and 2 over the project area. Finally, the applicant requests 2 CPC special permits. The first is a special permit to establish an LSGD, permitting the applicant to modify regulations on height and setback, distribution of bulk, and minimum distance between walls and windows. The applicant is requesting a second special permit to reduce the required parking at the site from 167 spaces to 143 spaces. Here you can see the zoning map amendment outlined. As noted, the existing property is currently zoned R6 with a C12 overlay mapped over a small portion of the project area closer to Mermaid Avenue to the north. The rezoning can be described in 3 parts. Again, the entirety of the project area is mapped R6 right now, so a portion of that R6 district will be rezoned to R73. A C24 commercial overlay will be mapped over a portion of the R73 district along Surf Avenue at about a 100-foot depth, which you can see at the bottom of the block here. Finally, the depth of the C12 overlay mapped along Mermaid Avenue to the north will be reduced from 150 feet to 100 feet. And that's what you can see outlined in that red box at the northern part of the block. Please note that this will result in the northern 200 feet of the lot remaining as an R6 district as it is today. Here you can see the differences between the existing R6 and proposed R7-3 regulations. R7-3 districts permit both height factor and quality housing buildings. For buildings with qualifying affordable housing, the maximum base height is 105 feet and the maximum building height is 145 feet. The maximum residential FAR is 6.0 and a commercial FAR of 2.0 is permitted within the area mapped with the C24 overlay. Community facilities are also permitted at an FAR of 6.5. Regarding parking, the project area is outside of the greater transit zone. Just as is the case with the existing R6 districts, buildings in R7-3 districts must provide parking for 50% of dwelling units. However, that requirement is only 12% for income-restricted dwelling units, and all parking may be waived if under 15 spaces are determined to be required. The applicant also seeks to amend Appendix F of the zoning resolution to designate the project area as a mandatory inclusionary housing, or MIH area, with options 1 and 2. Option 1 requires that affordable housing be set aside at 25% of the residential floor area at an average of 60% of the area median income. Within that 25%, at least 10% at 40% AMI is required. Option 2 requires that 30% of the residential floor area of the building be affordable to households at an average of 80% AMI. While the applicant technically intends to choose option 1, ensuring approximately 102 units are permanently income restricted, again, they intend to exceed these minimum requirements by providing all units as income restricted per HPD's Extremely Low and Low Affordability Program, or ELA program. 2 special permits are being requested with the application. The first special permit requested is for an LSGD. The LSGD will allow the applicant to construct the building with waivers related to height and setback, distribution of bulk, and minimum distances between walls and windows. I'll elaborate upon each of these further in the next few slides. Regarding height and setback regulations, the applicant is required per ZR sections 23.432 and 23.433 to set back their building above the maximum base height of 105 feet. The setback requirement is 10 feet along a wide street and 15 feet along a narrow street. The applicant is requesting to waive this requirement to build within these required setback areas. Here you can see a site plan with the areas shaded in blue showing where the applicant plans to build within the required setback areas. The axonometric image on the right side shows that the applicant plans to build within the 15 feet setback area along West 25th Street, a narrow street, and within the 10-foot setback area along Surf Avenue, a wide street. So with these images, you can see the areas that the applicant intends to build in that technically are within the setback area are shown here in blue. Additionally, the applicant is requesting permission to redistribute residential floor area from the R6 portion of the lot to the R7-3 portion. As noted, the area of the tax lot occupied by the parking lot will remain zoned R6. So the applicant is requesting that the permitted bulk in that area, which will be unused as it's a parking lot, will be transferred to the remainder of the zoning lot. The R7-3 district permits a maximum FAR of 6.0 and a maximum community facility FAR of 6.5, as previously discussed. But with this waiver, the total built FAR within the R7-3 portion of the lot is to be 7.35, and the total built FAR within the R7-3 C24 portion of the lot is to be 6.16. The final LSGD waiver requested is for distance between buildings. Per ZR section 23.372C2, 40 feet is required between these two buildings. The applicant is requesting permission to construct the new building at a distance of only 30 feet from the existing building, as seen here. An additional special permit is requested related to parking. While the site currently has 160 spaces, only 117 spaces are required per an existing certificate of occupancy. The new building would require 50 spaces. As such, adding those requirements together, 167 total spaces are to be required for the full development after construction. The applicant is seeking a special permit per ZR section 7452 to allow a waiver of this requirement so that they can construct 143 spaces rather than the required 167. To approve the special permit request, the CPC must find that the reduction won't impede access to existing parking on adjoining lots and won't have undue adverse impacts on residences, businesses, or community facilities in the area. The CPC is permitted to prescribe appropriate conditions to minimize impacts on the character of the neighborhood. This completes the summary of actions being requested for the project. Before I close, I wanted to take the opportunity to discuss some of the other regulations on design for this property. On the upper right, you can see the elevation of the building, which illustrates the impacts of these controls on the project. As noted, the building will step up from the middle of the block as it moves south towards Surf Avenue, a wide street. In all zones, a minimum of 2 building materials are required to ensure varied frontages. Zone B requires a distinctive entryway, and Zone D requires certain levels of vertical articulation of the site. Zone F, facing the parking lot, is not permitted to have blank walls. Finally, all roof-mounted mechanical equipment must be screened from view. This project requires a racial equity report pursuant to Local Law 78. While the area is designated as having a lower displacement risk, the annual median household income in the area is approximately $47,000, which is considerably lower than Brooklyn and New York City as a whole. The applicant has stated that the proposal would produce 408 income-restricted units from a range of 27% of AMI to 77% of AMI. Nearly 60% of units would be designated as income restricted to individuals earning no more than 57% of AMI. In 2020, 54% of the area was of white non-Hispanic ethnicity. This is a much higher percentage than found in Brooklyn and the city as a whole at 35% and 31%, respectively. However, from these charts, you could see that the white non-Hispanic population actually used to be even greater, as the white and black non-Hispanic populations have decreased from 2010 to 2020, despite the area seeing a 5% increase in the overall population. Most of this growth in the area was the result of an increase in the Asian non-Hispanic population, which tracks with trends seen in the borough and the city as a whole. To summarize, this application would facilitate the construction of an 18-story mixed-use building with 408 income-restricted units as well as 2 superintendent units. The development would include almost 11,000 square feet of community facility space, nearly 8,000 square feet of commercial space, and 143 parking spaces. In total, the project will result in a full development site with 770 total income-restricted dwelling units and improvements to open space and recreational areas. That concludes my presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Great. Thank you very much. Let me see if there are questions from the panel here. We'll start with Commissioner Benjamin.
Hi, I was hoping that, great presentation, but I was hoping to get more understanding of the relationship between the Mitchell-Lama part of the project and this new part. You suggested that the upgrades in the Mitchell-Lama part of the project had already been completed.
Correct.
But I thought I read that part of the money from this project was going to fund those upgrades.
Yeah, so there will be additional upgrades that the applicant, obviously this is just what the applicant has told us, and I'll allow them to elaborate a little bit more, but our understanding is that many of the upgrades were due as a result of Hurricane Sandy years ago. However, they plan to have additional upgrades for the building that were perhaps not as urgent, right, in terms of resiliency after Hurricane Sandy, that are to be applied after this project is completed.
Can we get a list of those? Because some of them seem to be the same as what you were talking about. It said that they would be paying for upgrades to existing elevators or new elevators, boilers and booster pumps, 2 new mechanical rooms that would be above the floodplain, new windows, upgrading heating pipes, facade repairs. So I'd like a list of the ones that have already been done and the ones that are proposing to be funded from basically the sale or lease of the excess land.
Well, I do want to clarify regarding Mitchell-Lama that it's currently not regulated by Mitchell-Lama today. Right, so that was that.
They're out of the Mitchell-Lum program.
Right,
I do
yeah.
understand
Okay,
that, but
all right, yeah.
it's easier to just,
Sure, yeah. I can ask the applicant for that outline.
although there is a 32-year agreement that they extended,
My understanding, I'm a little bit
hazy,
yeah,
and that's
yeah,
okay.
on some of the details here. So I've asked the applicant for a lot of those details and kind of
Okay,
trying
if
to
you could
sift
just
through
ask them to explain the current relationship.
Yeah.
The way I read it is that they had a 32-year agreement which started in like 2013, which extended the rent stabilization
Correct.
requirements.
Of the existing building, right.
So I just want to understand really what the relationship is going to be going into the future, what is being funded by the new building, and when it would happen.
Understood, yeah. I can.
So if they're going to get the money up front and they're going to do these upgrades and repairs up front, irrespective of when construction starts or is finished, that would be one thing. If the TCO is going to be dependent on starting the funding stream, I just want to know when we can expect the existing building to see any improvements.
Understood.
Okay,
Understood.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner. Other questions? Commissioner Sorio.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks so much for the presentation. And also thanks for the materials. I found them very detailed. I had a quick question. I mean, obviously, when you look at the flooding map, this is, it is what it is, basically. And so, you know, I appreciate the emphasis on basically the requirements that would apply both in terms of Appendix G, but also the ELA program. But I'm wondering if we can explore a little bit more the public benefit or the potential contribution to the neighborhood. I mean, this is a neighborhood that is just heavily vulnerable to coastal flooding, and I see especially a large development special permit application as an opportunity to build neighborhood infrastructure. And so I'm wondering if this has come up in conversations with the applicant or whether this could be explored moving forward. Otherwise, we're just sort of like raising everything and letting the water flow, when we could actually be building intentionally potential opportunities for increasing coastal resilience in the neighborhood.
Understood, yeah.
And so I would love your feedback in terms of whether we could use the special permit to explore within the constraints what could be feasible here.
Yeah, I mean, I won't speak to, what is, within our constraints necessarily with this private application. I will say frankly that, what the information I've been provided on the site and resiliency concerns have generally been site dependent, but of course, one site's ability to withstand, storm flooding and other things does have spillover effects. So I can ask the applicant if they have any additional information or have had conversations about upgrading infrastructure to serve the neighborhood level.
Thank you. Yeah, and I have another quick question. So thanks so much for the information on the 4 feet experienced after Sandy. But I wanted to know, does the department have updated projections in terms of what to be expected right now under different climate change projections in terms of height of the storm surge?
Yeah, I mean, those projections we generally get from, the projections that we have from our FEMA flood maps and other, of those things that I don't have in this presentation.
Fair enough.
To me right now, but we certainly have that information available.
That'll be great. If you don't mind sharing that, I think that'll give us, it'll give me a really closer sense of exactly sort of like how far above does design flood elevation really get us here.
Right, and how far in advance, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner. Okay. Thanks, David. This item's certified. Let's move on to the next.
The 5th item on our agenda is a certification of zoning map and zoning text amendments in Brooklyn Community District 3, and our presenter is Veronica Brown.
Hi, Veronica.
Hello.
Okay, whenever you're ready.
Oh, I'm ready. Sorry, I was just waiting for the presentation.
Oh, waiting for the, here we go.
Okay. Hello, Commissioners. Today I'll be presenting the 1166 Bedford Avenue rezoning. This is an application by Khalifa Residences LLC for a zoning map amendment from an R6A C24 district to an R7X C24 district, and a zoning text amendment to designate an MIH area. These actions will facilitate a 12-story mixed-use building with 144 units of income-restricted senior housing, ground floor commercial, and a community facility space, which will include a masjid and a school. This project will be using Green Fast Track for environmental review. This project is located at 1166 Bedford Avenue between Madison Street and Putnam Avenue in the Bedford-Stuyvesant neighborhood of Brooklyn Community District 3. This is an aerial view facing north. The project area appears in the yellow outline and includes 3 lots, lots 30, 29, and 40. Lot 30, which is outlined here in magenta, is the development site. The development site is the entire block front on the west side of Bedford between Madison Street and Putnam Avenue. The A and C lines run along Fulton Street, visible at the bottom of this image. A and C service is available at Nostrand Avenue, which is 6 blocks from the project area. C and Franklin Avenue shuttle service is approximately 4 blocks from the project area. G train service is also available 7 blocks north of the project area at Bedford Nostrand Avenues. The area is also well served by bus, including the B44 and B44 SBS along Bedford Avenue, the B26 along Putnam Avenue, the B52 along Gates Avenue, and the B48 along Franklin Avenue. 1 block south of the development site is John Hancock Playground, a jointly operated playground and schoolyard that will receive upgrades as part of the AIM Up rezoning commitments, including improved equipment for all ages, sustainability measures, and a public restroom. This map shows the surrounding area's land use and zoning. Bedford Avenue is a mixed-use corridor in which most buildings have ground floor retail with residential above. The buildings are typically 3 to 6 stories and include a mix of older buildings and new as-of-right development. Side streets, including Madison Street and Putnam Avenue, are generally characterized by 2 to 4 story row houses. The project area is currently zoned R6A C24, which allows for buildings including qualifying affordable housing to reach a maximum height of 95 feet with a maximum base height of 65 feet with a maximum residential FAR of 3.9. Parking is not required for residential uses in the inner transit zone and is waived for non-residential uses when located in mixed buildings. The commercial overlay allows for local retail. This project area's R6A zoning was established as part of the 2007 Bedford-Stuyvesant rezoning. That rezoning aimed to preserve neighborhood character while also supporting housing growth and affordable housing along appropriate corridors such as Fulton Street, which was mapped within R7D district as part of that rezoning. Here's a view of the project area looking southwest from the intersection of Bedford Avenue and Madison Street. The development site, outlined again here in magenta, is currently occupied by a 3-story commercial and community facility building that contains approximately 44,000 square feet of floor area. The building's 2nd and 3rd floor and a part of the 1st floor are dedicated to the Masjid Abdul Musi Khalifa and the Clara Muhammad School of Masjid Khalifa, both of which will continue to occupy the proposed development. The rest of the 1st floor has neighborhood commercial uses, including restaurants, office space, and a home improvement store. Here's another view of the project area, now looking northwest from the intersection of Bedford Avenue and Putnam Avenue. As mentioned, the development site is the full block front of the west side of Bedford between Madison Street and Putnam Avenue. Bedford Avenue is an 80-foot wide street, a wide street under zoning, and Madison Street and Putnam Avenue are each 70 feet wide, or narrow streets under zoning. Here's a view of the project area, which extends 100 feet from Bedford Avenue, looking northeast from Putnam Avenue. The building on the left-hand side of the image on lot 40 has been occupied by the House of God Church. This lot is not part of the development site. Here's a view of the project area now looking southeast from Madison Street. The building on the right-hand side of this image on lot 29 is a 4-unit residential building that is currently under construction. This lot is also not part of the development site. The applicant is proposing a 12-story, 93,837 square foot building. This would include 75,602 square feet of residential, consisting of 144 units of income-restricted senior housing. This building would also include 13,412 square feet of community facility space. This would include the Masjid Abdul Musi Khalifa and the Clara Muhammad School, currently located on the development site. The remaining 4,823 square feet would be ground floor commercial space. The building would rise to a height of 95 feet before setting back and continuing to rise to a total height of 125 feet. Along Madison Street, which is visible on the right-hand side of this rendering, the proposed development would set back after 45 feet. No off-street parking spaces would be provided. To facilitate this development, the applicant is requesting a zoning map amendment to change the existing R6A C24 district along the west side of Bedford Avenue between Madison Street and Putnam Avenue to an R7X C24 district. The proposed zoning district of R7X is a contextual medium-density residential zoning district that permits 6 FAR of residential uses for qualifying affordable housing. The maximum community facility FAR in this district is 5. The maximum height for buildings containing qualifying affordable housing in R7X districts is 145 feet, with a maximum base height of 105 feet. The C24 commercial overlay would remain in place, continuing to allow neighborhood commercial uses like local retail and restaurants. This development site is in the inner transit zone, meaning off-street parking is not required for residential uses, and non-residential parking requirements are waived in mixed buildings. In addition to the zoning map amendment, the applicant is requesting a zoning text amendment to amend Appendix F and establish an MIH area with options 1 and 2. The proposed MIH area can be seen at the top of this map. MIH option 1 requires that 25% of residential floor area be affordable at 60% AMI. MIH option 2 requires that 30% of residential floor area be affordable at 80% AMI. So in conclusion, Khalifa Residences LLC is requesting a zoning map amendment to change an R6A C24 district to an R7X C24 district, and a zoning text amendment to establish an MIH area. These actions would facilitate a new 12-story development with 144 units of income-restricted senior housing, as well as community facility and commercial space. Thanks so much. I'll now take any questions.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Mann.
Yeah, I just had one question that sort of related to this application and the last one, which is how we think about zoning districts along some corridors where it's an affordable housing project, when there's the, affordable housing bonus, right? The universal affordable housing bonus of 20%. So I'm just, as the department wrestles with what's the right zoning district for these places where they're a standalone 100% affordable housing project, is there a thought about mapping it to something that's a little bit more consistent with the existing zoning on the corridor, like an R7A, and then the applicant using the 20% bonus? And just trying to understand how that thinking plays out in the context of these applications.
Yeah, well, just to clarify, as part of this text amendment, as part of the zoning text amendment, we'll establish MIH, and therefore this site will no longer be eligible for universal affordability preference. Those are like mutually exclusive options. I suppose, like an as-of-right option, if this site was not rezoned somewhat, and it's more theoretical exercise, then universal affordability preference can be used as of right. So I don't know if anyone wants to speak to more generally guiding the department's thinking about corridors,
Right, so just make sure I understood that correctly. So you can't layer the 20% bonus on top of an MIH project.
Once you're in an MIH area, you can't use the universal affordability preference. The universal affordability preference is for the parts of the city in which MIH is not mapped. They're mutually exclusive.
Right, and is that a policy or is that a zoning requirement?
That's the way the zoning works, that those two things are.
Okay, got it.
And I can just answer the general question. Alex Summer, director of the Brooklyn office. And so when looking at the corridor, there's a couple of different considerations. In particular, how, for example, Fulton Street as a corridor, which is a couple blocks to the south, is mapped as part of the Bed-Stuy South rezoning. It was mapped to R7D districts. Atlantic Avenue recently, just 1 or 2 blocks further south, higher density. And so, it's been a couple of years since the Bed-Stuy South rezoning, so I think it's appropriate to take a look at potential changes for the corridor. As a private application, it's always a balance between having a rational zoning district boundary and the extent by which they could rezone larger chunks. That was a discussion we had with them about the appropriateness of that. And then finally, the R7X is one of those unique districts that allows a little bit more flexibility in the envelope. The program and architecture, and the applicant can describe this a little bit more, desired to have kind of a standalone educational and house of worship building. And so allowing for kind of the more flexibility in the envelope was also kind of a stated goal there. So it was a balance of kind of those 3 things.
Sorry, I was just wrestling with this question of, obviously we want to support these affordable housing projects citywide, and in the context of a corridor where maybe there's an established envelope, does it make sense to be explicit that the reason the density is happening here is because it's affordable housing, as opposed to because we think R7X. And I'm just using this a little more as an example, not necessarily. So that's what I was just trying to understand, that, and I don't think I appreciated the universal affordable housing bonus couldn't be layered on top of an MIH project. Because it seems like in some ways there's a logic to having a higher density for affordable housing, which is what the universal affordable housing bonus does, right? Citywide. Right. Okay. So I think I've got the answer. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner. Commissioner Osorio?
Thank you, Chair. Thanks so much for the presentation, and also thanks for the documents, right? Very detailed. Two quick questions. One is more of a comment. If you can, when we see it again, if we can see a little bit more information on the sustainability measurements, specifically type of energy efficiency levels or standards, and also whether there's going to be renewables. I'm also interested in hearing whether there's going to be rooftop potential for green roofs and so forth. The other question, it really has to do, it's a really quick clarification question. Thanks so much for the emphasis, and it's great to hear that there's a plan to retain the cultural, the community facility uses. But I'm wondering if you can say a little bit more about the existing commercial uses and whether there's a plan to transition, retain, et cetera.
Yeah, sure. So I'll answer that question first, and I'll go back to the sustainability notes. But so for the commercial spaces, there are 7 existing commercial tenants, which are mostly, the applicant has told us, owner-operated businesses. Some have a few employees. The applicant has expressed that tenants that vacate the property in good standing are expected to be given first opportunity on a first-come, first-served basis to return to the retail space that's in the project when it's initially offered. But I can flag that if it's the case I have any more information to provide about the existing tenants when they're here.
Thank you.
And for sustainability noted, I'll relay that to the applicant. They have let us know that it's being designed as a fully electric building with enterprise green communities. The roof design does account for future solar infrastructure and or green roofs. And they're considering some other sustainability elements, but I'll have them speak to that in more depth.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner. Okay. Thank you very much, Veronica. This item is now certified, and we'll move on to the next item for today.
The 6th item on our agenda is a certification of zoning map and zoning text amendments in Queens Community District 4. Our presenter is Derek Jasmine.
Chair, for the record, I'm recused on this.
Commissioner Rampersad is recused. Derek, welcome.
All right. Good afternoon. Is it time now to say that? All right, this is 5020 108th Street rezoning. This is a private application by Federici Builders Corp. for a zoning map amendment from an existing R6B and R6B C23 zoning districts to an R7A C24 zoning district, and a related zoning text amendment to Appendix F to establish a mandatory inclusionary housing area, MIH, mapping both options 1 and 2. These actions would facilitate the development of 2 mixed-use buildings with approximately 216,400 total square feet, containing 196 total dwelling units, of which 49 would be income restricted, 15,300 square feet of commercial space, 16,600 square feet of community facility space, and 68 total accessory parking spaces. And here is an aerial view looking at the Corona neighborhood and surrounding areas. The project area is located between 108th Street and Corona Avenue, both of which are wide streets. 108th Street is a major north-south corridor that runs to the center of Corona. The project area is located less than a half mile from Flushing Meadows, containing such attractions as the New York Hall of Science, Queens Museum, and Queens Zoo. The surrounding area is served by a number of elementary, intermediate, and high schools. This proposal is also located within the outer transit zone. 108th Street is served by the Q23 bus, while Corona Avenue is served by the Q58. The nearest subway station is located at 103rd Street Corona Plaza, along the 7 train, along Roosevelt Avenue, approximately 7 or 8 blocks to the north. Right, as seen here, the immediate surrounding area is characterized by a mix of land uses, including residential, commercial, and community facility uses, with commercial uses concentrated along 108th Street and Corona Avenue, where commercial overlays are also mapped. The surrounding areas are primarily residential, in line with the underlying residential districts. In 1961, the project area was initially mapped with R6 and was rezoned to R6B in 1989 under the Elmhurst South Corona rezoning. Zooming a bit closer into the project area, the applicant-owned lots are currently improved with a mix of 1- and 2-story commercial buildings, as well as parking facilities. And while the non-applicant-owned lots within the project area are improved with 2- and 3-story mixed-use buildings with ground floor commercial and residential uses situated on the upper floors. And William F. Moore Park is located directly across 51st Avenue from the project area, which is currently undergoing reconstruction. This here is a view facing north from the intersection of Corona Avenue and 51st Avenue. Corona Avenue and 51st Avenue look facing directly at the proposed development for Building 1. This here is a view of 108th Street facing northwest with the project area and proposed development on the left side. Here's a view of 50th Avenue facing west with the project area situated on both sides of the street. And here's another view of the project area facing northwest from 108th Street, looking at 50th Avenue with the proposed development in the front and center. So the proposed rezoning would facilitate the development of 2 new buildings containing 196 total dwelling units, of which 49 would be income restricted, 15,300 square feet of commercial space, 16,600 square feet of community facility space, and 68 total accessory parking spaces. Building 1 would be built at 5020 108th Street with 8 stories and a total building height of 85 feet, and would contain 141,200 total square feet out of max FAR of 5.01. The building would contain 122 dwelling units, of which 31 would be income restricted, with 15,300 square feet of commercial space and 6,400 square feet of community facility space, and 44 accessory parking spaces situated in the cellar. Here you can see the commercial entrance. The residential entrance would be situated along 108th Street, as well as an entrance to the community facility space. A parking entrance to the cellar would be situated along 50th Avenue, where a new curb cut would be cut into the curb, and commercial entrances would be situated along 51st Avenue as well as Corona Avenue. Building 2 would be a 7-story building with a max building height of 75 feet, containing 75,200 total square feet, with 74 dwelling units, of which 18 would be income restricted, and 10,200 square feet of community facility space and 24 accessory parking spaces. Those parking spaces would also be located in the cellar, accessible via a new curb cut along 108th Street. Entrance to the residential and community facility portions of the building would also be accessible from 108th Street. So to facilitate this proposed development, the applicant proposes a zoning map amendment from existing R6B and R6B C23 zoning districts to an R7A C24 zoning district and a zoning text amendment to map MIH options 1 and 2. The existing R6B C23 zoning districts has a max base height of 45 feet, max building height of 65 feet. The maximum residential FAR for qualified housing is 2.4, and with the commercial overlay, a max FAR of 2 for commercial and community facility uses. R7A districts allow a max base height of 85 feet, max building height of 115 feet. The maximum residential FAR for qualified housing is 5.01, and the C2 for commercial overlay allows FAR up to 2. Applicant is also seeking to map both options 1 and 2 for mandatory inclusionary housing. Option 1 requiring 25% of residential floor area be income restricted at an average of 60% AMI, while option 2 requires that 30% of residential floor area be income restricted at an average of 80% AMI. And in this case, the applicant is proposing to utilize option 1 in both new buildings. This application is subject to a racial equity report requirement since it seeks approval for an increase in permitted floor area of at least 50,000 square feet. The median household income in Community District 4 was approximately $59,400 annually, which is less than estimates for Queens and New York City at $70,900 and $67,100 respectively. The estimated monthly rent of income-restricted units for households between 40 and 80% AMI ranges from $1,090 a month for a studio up to $3,230 a month for a 3-bedroom. The estimated average income for households earning between 40 and 80% AMI range from $43,500 for one person up to $124,000 for a 5-person household. And the applicant is proposing that 25% of units be income restricted, in line with MIH option 1. The project area is located within the Elmhurst and South Corona Puma, and of which approximately 35% identified as Asian non-Hispanic, 5% identified as Black non-Hispanic, 53% identified as Hispanic or Latino of any race, and 5% identified as white non-Hispanic. Between 2010 and 2020, the total population in this area increased 5%, which is slightly lower than the 8% growth seen at the Queens and New York City level. Asian non-Hispanic and Hispanic Latino populations saw increases, while Black non-Hispanic and white non-Hispanic saw decreases in this area during this time. So in summary, the applicant proposes a zoning map amendment from existing R6 BC23 to an R7 AC24 zoning district, related zoning text amendment to Appendix F to map MIH options 1 and 2, which would facilitate the development of 2 mixed-use buildings containing approximately 216,400 total square feet, with 196 total dwelling units, of which 49 would be income restricted, 15,300 square feet of commercial space, 16,600 square feet of community facility space, and 68 total accessory parking spaces. And that concludes my presentation.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Osorio.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for the presentation. I was just wanted to make a quick comment about that. From the racial equity report, it's also very important to highlight that this has one of the highest risks for displacement. And so, you know, I would love to hear a little bit more in terms of how MIH option 1 really here works out in the like need for deeper affordability. Something that I would love to hear a little bit more when this comes back to us.
Sure. Thank you for the comment.
Yeah. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Commissioner. Okay. Well, Commissioner Osorio.
Sorry about that. Yes, and when if you can, when we see it again, say a little bit more about what's the plan for the renovations for the William F. Moore Park, that would be great.
Okay, sure.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. This item is now certified. Thank you. Let's move on.
The 7th item on our agenda is a certification of zoning map and zoning text amendments in Queens Community District 4, and our presenter is again Derek Jasmine.
All right, Derek, welcome back.
All right, greetings again. This is 6302 Fresh Pond Road rezoning. This is an application by 6302 Fresh Pond Realty LLC for a zoning map amendment from an existing R5B C14 zoning district to an R6A C24 zoning district, and a related zoning text amendment to Appendix F to establish mandatory inclusionary housing with option 1 at 6302 Fresh Pond Road in Ridgewood, Queens, Community District 5. These actions would facilitate the development of a new 7-story mixed-use building with approximately 51,300 total square feet, containing 54 total dwelling units, of which 14 would be income restricted, 7,000 square feet of commercial space, and 19 total accessory parking spaces. Here's an aerial view looking at Ridgewood and surrounding areas. The project area is located along Fresh Pond Road, which is a wide street, between Bleecker Street, a narrow street, and Metropolitan Avenue, which is also a wide street. Fresh Pond Road is a major north-south corridor that runs through the center of Ridgewood and connects to Maspeth to the north. Fresh Pond Road is served by a number of bus lines, including the Q58, Q98, QM24, QM25, and QM34. The project area is located within the outer transit zone, and the nearest subway station is Fresh Pond Road Station along the M-Train, approximately 7 blocks to the south. Parks in the surrounding area include Grover Cleveland Playground to the west and Joseph Mafera Park to the east. The surrounding area is well served by a number of elementary, intermediate, and high schools. As seen here, the immediate surrounding area is characterized by a mix of land uses, including residential, commercial, and community facility uses, with commercial uses concentrated along Fresh Pond Road and Metropolitan Avenue. Consistent with the commercial overlays, and surrounding areas are primarily residential in line with underlying R districts. In 1961, the project area was initially mapped with an R5 zoning district and was rezoned to R5B in 2000 under the Ridgewood rezoning. Now zooming in closer to the project area, with the project area outlined in red and development site outlined in yellow, which is applicant-owned and currently a vacant lot. The non-applicant-owned lots within the project area are primarily improved with 2- and 3-story mixed-use buildings with ground floor commercial and residential uses on the upper floors, as well as a drive-through TD Bank. This is a view facing south from the intersection of Bleecker and Fresh Pond Road, looking at Fresh Pond Road with the proposed development outlined in yellow on the right. Here's a view facing west from the same intersection of Fresh Pond Road and Bleecker, looking toward Bleecker Street, a narrow street, with proposed development outlined in yellow on the left. And here is another view looking directly at the development site facing southwest from that same intersection of Fresh Pond Road and Bleecker Street. The proposed rezoning would facilitate the development of a 7-story mixed-use building with approximately 51,300 total square feet at an FAR of 3.55, containing 54 total dwelling units, of which 14 would be income restricted, 7,000 square feet of commercial space, and 19 total accessory parking spaces. The residential entrance would be situated along Bleecker Street. Multiple commercial entrances would be located along Bleecker Street and Fresh Pond Road, and the parking entrance would require a new curb cut located on Bleecker Street, while the existing curb cuts along Fresh Pond Road would be removed. So to facilitate the proposed development, the applicant proposes a zoning map amendment from existing R5B C14 zoning district to an R6A C24 zoning district, as well as a zoning text amendment to map MIH both options 1 and 2. The existing R5B C14 zoning districts have a max base height of 25 feet, max building height of 45 feet, with max residential FAR for qualified housing at 2, and a max FAR at 1 for commercial uses. R6A districts allow a max base height of 55 feet and max building height of 85 feet. The maximum residential FAR for qualified housing in R6A is 3.9, and the C24 commercial overlay allows for an FAR of up to 2. So MIH option 1 requires that 25% of residential floor area be income restricted at an average of 60% AMI, while option 2 requires that 30% of residential floor area be income restricted at an average of 80% AMI. This application is also subject to the racial equity report requirement, since it seeks approval for an increase in permitted residential floor area above 50,000 square feet. The median, and during this time, the median household income in Community District 5 was approximately $88,200 annually, which is above the estimates for Queens and New York City, respectively, as a whole. The estimated monthly rent for income-restricted units for households between 40 and 80% AMI ranges from $1,220 for a studio up to $3,370 for a 3-bedroom. The estimated average income for households earning between 40 and 80% AMI range from $45,400 annually for a one-person household up to $140,000 annually for a five-person household. As you can see here, the applicant is proposing 25% of units be income restricted in line with MIH option 1. This project area is located in the Ridgewood, Maspeth, Middle Village, and Glendale Puma, of which approximately 11% identified as Asian non-Hispanic, 2% identified as Black non-Hispanic, 36% identified as Hispanic or Latino of any race, and 48% identified as White non-Hispanic. And between 2010 and 2020, the total population in this area increased 5%, which is lower than Queens and New York City as a whole. Asian non-Hispanic and Black non-Hispanic populations saw significant increases, while Hispanic Latino populations saw a moderate increase, and White non-Hispanic saw a decrease in this area during this time. So in summary, the applicant proposes a zoning map amendment from an existing R5B C14 zoning district to R6A C24 and a related zoning text amendment to establish MIH options 1 and 2 to facilitate the development of a 7-story mixed-use building containing approximately 51,300 total square feet with 54 total dwelling units, of which 14 would be income restricted, 7,000 square feet of commercial space, and 19 total parking spaces. And that concludes my presentation.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Osorio.
Thank you. Yeah, no, thank you for the presentation. And again, same comment as with the previous project. But in this one, just want to say a word of caution in terms of the data that we see meeting all the requirements in the racial equity report, which together consolidate information for the Puma. But here we need to see Ridgewood separate from it. Your map shows that there's a high risk of displacement, but also the median household income varies a lot, and so do the different existing rents. So I would just encourage you to take a look at that, and maybe we can discuss that when we see it later. Just that if we just stick with the race equity report, we will miss the discrepancies between Ridgewood and the other neighborhoods in the Puma.
That's a good point. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner. Okay, thank you. Again, this item is certified. Thanks.
The 8th item on our agenda is a certification of zoning map and zoning text amendments in the Bronx Community District 9, and our presenter is Nathan Heffron.
Commissioner Rampersad is recused on this item, and welcome.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Right. This is the presentation for 1160 Pugsley Avenue rezoning. It is in the Unionport neighborhood in Community District 9 of the East Bronx. The applicant is 1160-1178 Pugsley Ave LLC. It's then also located in Council District 18. And the actions requested for the commission today are a zoning map amendment and a zoning text amendment to map MIH. The slide provides an aerial view of the surrounding area. The project site is located approximately 1 block south of the Cross Bronx Expressway. It's well served by mass transit. The Parkchester station of the 6 train is located approximately 0.3 miles away. It is also served by numerous bus routes, including the BX4 and 4A, BX36, BX39, and Q44 select bus service. Multiple express bus routes providing service to Midtown Manhattan are also located within walking distance. Commercial activity is concentrated along the Cross Bronx Expressway South Service Road and Olmsted Avenue. Commercial uses generally consist of ground floor grocery stores, restaurants, and barbershops. Henry Hudson Junior High School 125 is located within the surrounding area. Located just beyond the surrounding area are public schools providing instruction to pre-K through 5th grade, including the Dr. Emmett W. Bassett School, PS 36, and PS 583. Several houses of worship are situated to the west, north, and east of the project area. Nearby public open spaces consist of Haviland Playground, a just under 1 acre playground located in the southwest corner of the surrounding area, and Chief Dennis L. Devlin Park, an approximately half-acre triangle plaza adjoining the Cross Bronx Expressway North Service Road located in the northeast corner of the surrounding area. Zooming in, the project is located on the block end of Pugsley Avenue, which is a wide street between Gleason and Powell Avenues. The surrounding area is generally characterized by a mix of low-rise 1- and 2-family residential buildings, multi-family residential walk-up buildings, and a portion of the Cross Bronx Expressway and service roads on the north and south sides of the Cross Bronx Expressway. Taller 5- and 6-story multi-family residential buildings and mixed residential and commercial buildings are located immediately southwest and north of the project area. Just beyond the surrounding area, to the south and northwest of the project area, are taller 8-, 15-, and 14-story multi-family residential buildings. The project area faces 5- and 6-story buildings on opposite sides of all 3 street fronts. The building opposite of the northern portion of the project area includes non-conforming ground floor retail uses. The existing zoning of the project area and much of the surrounding area is an R5 low to medium density residential district. The project area is located within the outer transit zone. There are some community facility uses in the area, such as the schools that were mentioned on the previous slide. And you can see neighborhood serving commercial corridors on the Cross Bronx Service Road and to the north on Westchester Avenue and Hugh Grant Circle, where the 6 train is located. The project area and development site consists of Block 2780, lots 1, 6, and a portion of lots 13 and 80. The development site is approximately 20,000 square feet, facing the east end of the block on Pugsley Avenue. Lot 1 contains non-conforming commercial uses, including restaurants and non-occupied storefronts. Lot 6 includes a former surface parking lot and today has no active use. Here's some photos of the project area. The project area is located to the left in photo 1, and you can see in lot 1 in photo 2, which is currently improved with the 1-story non-conforming commercial building. Photo 3 shows lot 6 of the project area, currently unimproved and was previously used for surface parking. Additional views of the project site, including the 1-story commercial building on the southwest corner of the block here. The actions the applicant are seeking before the commission today are as follows: a zoning map amendment to rezone the project site, a zoning text amendment to map mandatory inclusionary housing. Also to note, this project is also seeking a chairperson certification pursuant to ZR Section 63-30 for the provision of a fresh grocery store. The first action is a zoning map amendment, rezoning the existing R5 district to R7A with a C2-4 overlay. The current R5 zoning has been in place since the 1961 zoning resolution, and there have been no area-wide rezoning since then. There was a rezoning to the south at 2069 Bruckner Boulevard, which was adopted in 2019 and facilitated the development of a 7-story building with 266 residential units. The proposed R7A/C2-4 zoning district within an MIH area here allows a residential FAR of 4.0 for standard residences and 5.01 for qualifying affordable housing, a maximum community facility FAR of 4.0, and the maximum commercial FAR of 2.0, greater than what is currently allowed with the R5 district. The next action sought is a zoning text amendment to Appendix F to map a mandatory inclusionary housing area, option 1 or 2. MIH option 1 requires at least 25% of the residential floor area to be provided at an average that does not exceed 60% of the area median income, or AMI, with at least 10% of residential floor area at 40% of AMI, and no MIH unit may exceed 130% of AMI. MIH option 2 requires at least 30% of the residential floor area to be provided at an average that does not exceed 80% of the AMI, and no MIH unit may exceed 130% AMI. And here's the proposed MIH map. To the north on Westchester Avenue is a previous map amendment for the Westchester Muse rezoning, which was adopted in 2017. Here's an illustrative rendering of the proposed development. It will be 8 stories with an approximately 110,000 square feet of floor area and 104 income restricted units. A portion of the units will be income restricted pursuant to MIH, and the applicant intends on pursuing subsidy through the Department of Housing Preservation and Development's Mix and Match program. 32 required accessory parking spaces will also be provided. As you can see from the rendering, the building, which will face a wide street, is in context with the other medium-density apartment buildings also facing Pugsley Avenue. According to the racial equity report provided by the applicant, the average household income for this public use microdata area is approximately $44,000, roughly in line with the Bronx as a whole and lower than NYC's AMI. The estimated rent for the income restricted units for households ranging from 60 to 100% AMI is between $1,630 and $4,040, which will serve households with an income between $65,200 and $167,700. The proposed development will include a mix of studio, 1, 2, and 3-bedroom apartments. The area's demographics are similar to that to the rest of the Bronx, with a much higher Hispanic Latino population and a lower white non-Hispanic population compared to NYC as a whole. The area has seen slightly higher overall population growth compared to the Bronx and NYC overall, and has seen a significant increase in the Asian non-Hispanic population between the 2010 and 2020 censuses. In conclusion, these actions will facilitate the development of an 8-story building, including 104 income-restricted housing units and ground floor retail, including a grocery store compliant with the city's Fresh program requirements. I'm happy to take any questions.
Great, thank you. Starting with Commissioner Mudding.
Good to see you. Not a question, but a request. Can you please ask the applicant to break out the units by size and AMIs? I know that he's put down, or the applicant has put down the number of units, but they're not distinguished by AMI. So if you can do that and rents, that would be great.
Sure. We'll pass that along. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner. Commissioner Benjamin?
In terms of the Fresh supermarket, if you could ask the applicant if he's been in discussion with actual vendors and which vendors might be likely to occupy this space?
Yes. They, as a requirement for the program, they do have to provide additional application materials, including a letter of intent for that grocery store. I believe it'll be a Key Food, but that's also included as part of those materials to essentially ensure that there will be a grocery store that will occupy the.
Okay, and would it be a Key, if you could ask them if it would be a Key Food owned by the Mandel family, or would it be licensed Key Food?
I'm not sure, but we can verify with the applicant, though.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Osorio?
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for the presentation and for the materials. When we see it again, if you can ask the applicant to expand on the sustainability measures proposed, again, levels of energy efficiency, potential renewables on site. And in this case, given the flat surfaces, I would also like to see or know what's the rationale for potential green roofs, et cetera.
Sure. Yes, we can pass that along to the applicant. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Vice Chair Knuckles?
Let's refresh my recollection. With regard to Fresh, the Fresh supermarkets, and getting a TCO, what are the requirements in terms of when that Fresh supermarket, has to be in place?
I'm not exactly sure about the timing post approval of the project in order for the applicant to gain their TCO for the grocery store, but can follow up and provide a response for that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, this item is now certified. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's move on to the next item.
Okay, we're to post-hearing follow-ups. For post-hearing follow-up, first we have Arden Heights Wood Stream Restoration, which had a public hearing at the January 7th public meeting. Oliver Vega is here to present.
Hello, Oliver.
Hello. Good afternoon, Chair Garodnick. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Slide, push it forward. This is the staff recommendation for Arden Heights Wood Stream Restoration Project. The Department of City Planning staff supports this public application from DEP, DDC, and DCAS, seeking an acquisition of real property by the city to enable the construction of new sewer outfalls with stormwater best management practices, BMPs, and the installation of a series of downstream bank restoration and erosion prevention measures within the Arden Heights Woods watershed in the Arden Heights neighborhood of Staten Island's Community District 3. This action would facilitate the establishment of a 0.6-acre permanent easement through Block 5733, Lot 1, and the acquisition of a 3,900 square foot Block 5735, Lot 156, to facilitate BMP AH2, and the establishment of a 2,900 square foot permanent easement through Block 5776, Lot 70, for BMP AH5. The proposed BMPs are part of the Staten Island Bluebelt Network, which consists of streams, ponds, and wetlands across 16 watersheds in the southern half of the borough. These are essential nature-based components of the area's stormwater management system. In order to substantially complete the plan within the Arden Heights Wood watershed, DEP proposes to construct several storm sewers as well as the BMP projects to attenuate stormwater runoff. The two mentioned BMP, AH2 and AH5, would require additional land beyond what the city already owns in the area. This project would advance DEP's South Richmond Watershed Drainage Plan, and the acquired land would be placed under DEP jurisdiction and incorporated into the Staten Island Blue Belt system. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Oliver. Thank you very much. Okay, next up.
Next, there was a memo in your materials for 20 Berry Street, which will have a follow-up at the next review session, but Lucia Marquez-Reagan is on Zoom if there are questions. None? Okay. Lastly, at a future review session, we will have hearing follow-ups on 1727 Amsterdam Avenue, Hilltop Apartments, DEP Newtown Creek CSO Tunnel, Flushing Creek CSO Disinfection Facilities, and 1325 Avenue of the Americas Text Amendment. And that's the end of our business today.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Thank you, commissioners, for your time and attention here. And with that, we are adjourned.
The time is 12:46.